technical issues. However, ate some seafood, reheated some seafood, and maybe that wasn't the best idea. So a little, not a technical problem, but a bodily function problem. And we, in life, sometimes just can't avoid those. And also dealing with Amazon saying that they delivered us $300 worth of groceries, well, actually baby formula, the baby milk, saying they delivered it at 4 p.m. and we didn't get it. So Marie was stressed out with that. So real sorry, but truly appreciate the community here. We've got a fantastic community, auto community, helping each other out. And thank you for allowing me to start the show up 10 minutes later than intended. But there are some unforeseen problems. So sorry for that, community. You guys are so good to me, and I'm very, very fortunate to be accepted by you all. So Ridgeview, thank you so much for making it. Wayne, yes, good evening to you. Cubo, thank you so much for making it here. Really glad to see you guys. Thanks, Wayne. Thank you, Ridgeview. To all those that waited for the show to start up, truly, truly appreciate it. 4 high, 4 low. Just telling you, I'm sorry, my friends. That seafood maybe was a little bit, it smelled a little funny. And I said, hey, that smells like seafood, but it was a little too strong. So yeah, thumbs up if you've had bladder problems before. So I was ready for the show, and then that hit 10 minutes prior, and it was violent. But now that's all done. Marie's going to work out other $300 worth of groceries, which will probably turn into a bit of a rant this evening because, well, groceries have easily doubled. Many things have tripled in price when it comes to groceries from last year to this year. Lawrence, Merrick, thank you so much. Yes, rock on, my friends. Kindness is free, and you guys are and gals are some very generous people being so kind to us. So we're going to be covering some important stuff tonight. We're going to be talking about WTF is going on with the Ford Maverick. And by WTF, of course, I mean what the Ford. So what the Ford is going on with the Ford Maverick. We got to know, because this is a big important topic to our community here. After that, we're going to be going on, WTF is going on with the Ford Bronco. We're going to be covering Ford new model update, new models. So I'm going to be talking about the new models coming to Ford. Then episode 4 is going to be, do buyers and journalists like Ford? So let's talk about recalls, awards, and sales. That's going to lead into Toyota scandal. So big Toyota scandal going on right now that's going to hurt, currently is, and it's going to hurt more as time progresses, current owners. It's also going to be affecting future shoppers, and it does it smells like trouble, and it spells trouble for Toyota and all those under the Toyota umbrella. We're going to be talking about episode 6. We'll be talking about how there's a Cummins Dieselgate scandal. This smells and looks a lot like the Volkswagen Dieselgate that went down back in, I believe, 2019. So Dodge and Ram, it smells like black soot trouble for them. Then we're going to go on to an episode called 2023 Auto Sales, Success or a Flop. This is how every model performed. So we're going to look at the whole industry, and in looking at every single model, we're going to have a good idea of what did 2023 look like? What is it going to look like for 2024? Then, of course, we'll talk about Ford and VW. We have some amazing news to share in regards to Ford and VW. And we'll maybe finish up the night with huge news. Biden shocked us all. And car makers are kind of asking for Biden to ditch EVs. So anyways, I came across this title on YouTube, huge video. It's going to end up with 1 million views, and it's huge news. Biden shocked as all automakers demand to ditch EVs. Well, I'm putting a question mark to that. I'm going to say, don't be fooled. Let's cover the real deal. And there's some very interesting information in that, some positive and some negative. So we'll be talking all about that. I've got tons of notes, tons of things that we got to share so we can know, where is the EV industry going? Should you wait to buy an EV? Will EV completely replace gasoline powered vehicles? Maybe now is the time in the next few years to absolutely buy an electric vehicle, a gas powered, petrol powered vehicle, because maybe you won't have a chance in the future. Well, automakers are certainly sending, and dealers are sending different signals to Biden right now. So we'll talk about that. And if there's time, I've got a lot to rant about. maybe have a little 20-30 minute rant if there's time. So let's just jump right on, get this started. Again, thank you so much for giving me time to start up the show. Highlander, thank you so much for making it to the live. I know just this week you're asking me what time the lives were at, so really appreciate it. Highlander is the individual that came up with kindness is free. If you want to drop it and put it, say it properly in the comments section, please do. Thank you so much, Highlander. Highlander's right. Kindness is always free, and we should be more open to hearing each other's perspectives because no one has all the data. No one has all the data on anything. And when you don't have all the data, even if you could retain all the data in your mind and think of it all at once and then come to a conclusion, for a human, it's just, you can't have all the data, you can't recollect all the data, and you can't properly balance out all the data to be 100% certain. So the more discussion and debate that we have, the better. I know this week I got told a lot to kind of stick to cars, stay out of politics. Sometimes, you're being told these are American issues. It's none of my business. Well, I think democracy and liberty is everybody's business. If you're human, it's all of our business. And I think, the potential dangers of vaccines are worth pointing out because some research needs to go into that. We need to research. Last live at the end, I had a rant, and my big issue with it is we put so much, we had so many liberties removed. People essentially forced to take vaccines, and now that there's health issues going on like we've never seen, more young adults, or not just young adults, but anywhere from young adults to sort of prime of your life in your 30s and 40s adults, more of them are dying now than from wars post-Vietnam War. So from post-Vietnam, after the Vietnam War, all the way to now, less people have died in wars of the healthiest age group than they have since we've all been vaccinated. So I think there's not enough research going into what's going on, what's causing these heart issues, and why is there an excess amount of deaths. So I think these type of topics are of everybody's concern. And who's a one-dimensional character in life that only cares about one thing? So WH Asian received emissions recall notification for the Maverick. Yes, I had one of those. For my Lightning, I had a recall as well, and I just kind of read it over and I was like, I don't care. Some of the recalls really aren't too stressful. Some are going to cause a lot more problems, like what's going to be going down for Toyota and Dodge. So let's get that started. So that's the overview of what we're going to be covering tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for allowing me to start up a little later and still being here. Highlander, thank you so much. Really, really kind words. Joshua Rittenhouse, thank you so much for making it here. Yes, please get people in our group to the off-rodeos and those Bronco events. That's what we're going to be talking about in the next few minutes, Maverick, Bronco. So I'm just going to time mark this and start right up. WTF is going on with the Ford Maverick. And by WTF, I really mean what the Ford is going on with the Ford Maverick. So let's talk about what's going on with the Ford Maverick. What kind of wait times can you expect? Can you find one on the lot? How can you order one up properly? Should you make phone calls to try to get one now versus wait out your order, put in a new order? What are the delays going to look like if you put in an order? Where should you order? Or really more importantly, what type of questions should you ask to make sure that you order from the right place? Well, I'm here to answer those questions because I'm Johnny from Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, and my goal is to keep everyone informed so that people can save thousands of dollars, not have headaches when it comes to maintaining your vehicle. And of course, I want to keep everyone informed. I don't want anyone getting fooled. So those are my goals. Now let's start up this Ford Maverick talk. It's winter, and even some places down, last year, Texas got snow. So let's start with a rare car care commentary. Important trick. If you get snow in your region, maybe you've never had snow or you almost never get snow. We get a lot of snow, and I can tell you there are definite ways. Arquibo, thank you so much. There are definite ways to protect your Ford Maverick or Ford Bronco. If you've got snow, it might be very tempting to take your snow brush, the little bristles, and rub that along your paint. I'm going to tell you, I've seen a lot of trades. I've got more than a decade's worth of trades that I've seen. I've been looking on lots anyways. Many years of looking at. The last 11 years, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of vehicles come through on trade. And I can tell you, if you take the bristles from your brush and you wipe the snow off these vehicles, even the new ones, snow brush, it's basically a pole, and at the end of the pole, you've got little hairs. And they're not hairs, they're actually little like plastic strings. A type of plastic, and you take that to remove snow. Well, you're going to notice, hey, when I do this along the paint, my vehicle's cleaner underneath because, well, the snow is going to remove some of the dirt off your Ford Maverick or your brand new Ford Bronco. But in little time, you're going to notice your plastics are going to have all sorts of little lines in it, so your black plastics will not look good anymore. Bristles, thank you. They're called bristles. Brush bristles. So you take your snow brush, your snow scraper, you take the little bristles, you rub them along the plastics. You'll notice very quickly there's little lines in it, and you're not going to be very happy if you like a clean vehicle. Now, worse. If you do that over many winters, even just a few winters, your clear coat is going to have all those little lines in it. It's going to look horrible. You have lines going in every direction. And yes, you can compound your vehicle to get them off, but your vehicle can only handle so many compounds before you just don't have any clear coat, you could say, left to compound. Because when you do a compound, the way it removes those little lines is it kind of buffs the clear coat down to the height of those lines. So you don't see the lines anymore because you've reduced your clear coat layers. You can only do so many compounds on a vehicle. A compound is harsher. It digs down deeper than a polish, but you can only do so many polishes or so many compounds. And a wax job, certain waxes might temporarily kind of visually fill in those cracks, but before long, you'll do a few washes and you're back to having scratches in your clear coat. So you don't want to wear down your clear coat, because once the clear coat's gone, guess what? Then the sun's going to cook your paint, and it's going to fade the paint, and you're going to need a paint job. So whether you're buying a brand new Toyota, Ford, Audi, Porsche, Mercedes, whether you're spending $200,000 on a vehicle or $25,000 on a vehicle, keep it looking good. We're probably this winter even people in Florida are going to get snow. Maybe people in Texas will get snow. I want all of you to know this because it's an important trick. Almost all the trade-ins I take in have these scratches all over the place, and the snow brushes are a main cause of it. Now, if you're in a hot climate and you have a dusting rag, well, make sure you don't try to dust away or swipe away dirt. When you've got dirt on a vehicle, you can't just remove that by rubbing it off. And this is why, you always want to make sure that you break up that dirt as much as possible before contacting the paint. And this is why I do washes that are brushless washes. So your soap brush, I've been talking about snow brushes, but I should have also been talking about soap brushes. If you wash your vehicle with a brush with bristles, you got to watch out. They have to be unbelievably soft and have absolutely no dirt in them. Same thing for your mitts. Otherwise, your brand new vehicle is going to look like crap in not too long. So someone in the comments said, Dr. Johnny, that's very kind. Thank you so much. So what WTF is going on with the Ford Maverick? Well, now once your paint is looking great on the Ford Maverick, now you got to know some tricks on how to actually get your brand new Ford Maverick. And I can tell you right now on the lot, here are two that we have at our dealership. I'd say, guess what? Are they hybrids? Should you expect to get a hybrid off a lot and not put in an order? I'd say definitely not. We're a dealership that gets a good amount of Mavericks versus the people we have on our waiting list. We essentially have no one left on our waiting list that I know of for a Maverick. Maybe a few for 2024s, but I mean, we're getting 2023s in, and they don't have an assigned buyer. And we're also having, of course, orders canceled, but extra vehicles that we'll get in as just regular inventory for 2024, we will be seeing that for EcoBoost engines. So if an EcoBoost, that's the 2-liter turbo, 250 horsepower, 270 pound-feet of torque, available at pretty low RPM, making this a very fun, sporty little truck to drive around. Well, guess what? You are going to be able to pick up, if you're willing to make some phone calls, check on the internet, you will be able to get one right off the lot. But if it's a hybrid, I would not expect it. I'd say your chances are very slim because honestly, who's not going to take their hybrid order? It will happen. We have sold a few hybrids to individuals who were not the individual that ordered the hybrid because unfortunately we have some Ford Mavericks come in, hybrid Mavericks, 4 or 5 months ago, they'll have confirmed, oh, I'm going to take it when it comes in. But you know what? People are unpredictable. And it so happened that when we've made the phone calls to say, hey, great, it's coming in, it's going to show up in 3 weeks, or it's showing up in 1 week, or it just showed up, 5 minutes ago. Or sometimes people just don't like the value of their trade-in because trade-ins have dropped tremendously from when we gave an evaluation, let's say, a year ago. Guess what? Some people do cancel their hybrids, so you could potentially, if you're very fortunate, get a hybrid off a lot. But I'd say if you're looking for a hybrid, here are the tricks. Order it up. It's not a Ford Maverick hybrid is not a Ford Bronco Sport. Ford Bronco Sport, don't worry, you'll find one. An Explorer. You'll start seeing those on lots. We've got a few Explorers. Heck, we'll get to it soon, but we even have 5 Broncos for sale. So I'd say you have a much higher chance of getting a Ford Bronco than a Ford Maverick hybrid. And Ford F-150s, whether it's a Lightning or petrol-powered model, they're all over the place, so you don't need to worry about ordering those up. But if we are talking about this wonderful little compact truck that comes in still at an incredible price, and you want the hybrid, step 1, find the right dealer. And how do we find the right dealer? We ask the right questions. So when you get to a dealer, maybe filter a few, but with some phone calls, call them up and say, hey, if I order a Ford Maverick hybrid, how many do you already have on your order list? What number would I be if I order with you? And finally, how long can I expect to wait? If you get positive answers to all those, then you're going to also want to ask them before going in, if I go into your store, will you, when I order with you, will you sign a purchase or lease offer? And will you, not, of course, I'll sign it as well as the customer, the buyer, but will the dealership sign the order sheet? This way, if they say yes to all this, it means you're going to get to lock in your interest rate. And if it comes in and the interest rate's better and the price, window sticker price hasn't increased, well, then you can go with the deal of when it comes in. Because when you order a Ford, you can lock in today's pricing or choose the future pricing of the month when your Ford Maverick comes in. Make sure that they say they will sign that. Make sure that they say they will sell at MSRP, and make sure that they will give you a copy. Keep that copy that they have signed, purchase lease it's called, or a lease offer. A purchase offer or lease offer, and you need to have this sheet in hand, signed by them, signed by you, with your build purchase offer, also signed. At least now you've got your price and interest rate fixed in. Now, in the meantime, maybe you can look into getting a better interest from the bank, because in Canada, these things are running at very close to 9%. Maybe you can do a little bit better with your financial institution, or maybe you can throw it on the house mortgage if you have a better interest rate on the house mortgage. No one can force you to pay for these with their financing. They can't say, oh, well, you know what, you're going to be financed with X bank at 9%, and have that conversation with them prior. When they're signing, have them sign that, you can pay cash or take Ford's financing. Just to make sure they're not going to refuse you Ford's financing and force you to go with a bank at a higher percentage when the vehicle comes in. Now, I am very impressed with the Ford Maverick. One user, in our Ford Maverick community, one owner had an accident. The vehicle is completely scrapped. And they were relatively, him and his son were relatively a-okay. So it's very kind of that individual to have shared this with the Ford Maverick community. You can go see that at Ford Maverick Truck Club later. Please don't leave the show. We're just getting started, folks, and it's going to get better and better as we go forward. But you can get a Ford Maverick if you go with an EcoBoost. And the 2-liter is, if you like a sporty drive, both Maverick's suspension will give you a fantastic drive. It handles great in the bendies, in the corners. And I would, Gary, gray car, I would have the Ford Maverick completely undercoated. And if it's the hybrid, make sure that the people doing the undercoating know how to undercoat a hybrid. You don't want them spraying to death those orange wires. You also don't want them, playing too much around those orange wires and shaking them about and trying to move them around and spray around them, because it can actually lead to death. They're orange because they're high voltage wires. Stillfill, thank you so much. Ridgeview, thank you very much for answering. You're a wonderful moderator and an incredible human being, and I really appreciate that you're working hard to answer people's questions. I am lucky to have you, my friend. I'm not lucky to have all of you. You guys are very kind to me. We're a very kind car and truck community. Now remember, the Ford Maverick, you can put 1,500 pounds payload on the vehicle. Ford says 1,500 pounds in the box, but if the payload's 1,500 pounds, that's where I'm not sure exactly what's going on, because total payload includes the weight of the driver and any passengers. But I can tell you, we had this truck. We've towed with this truck. It towed the 4-wheeler incredibly well, and that was the hybrid engine, which is front-wheel drive only. But I am expecting an all-wheel drive hybrid to be announced as a 2025 model. And who knows, maybe things get out of plan and unofficial plans, but maybe things get out of line and they announce it for 2025, and it'll be something you can order and receive in 2026. And I can tell you that thing is going to be super popular. So keep your eyes tuned on our channel, because we'll announce it so that you can put a deposit and do a proper order on one of these. An all-wheel drive hybrid Ford Maverick is going to be the hottest ticket in the entire auto market. Everyone's going to want one. It already is an unbeatable truck, folks. Jump on one today if you can. The 2-liter is for your sportier driver. Yes, it consumes more. It consumes twice as much fuel. To be honest with you, in the city, you're going to consume about twice as much fuel with the EcoBoost all-wheel drive versus the front-wheel drive hybrid. But on the highway, the difference isn't that. It's not that wild. It's not that huge of a difference. If you're careful, and when you really want great fuel economy with the hybrid, you need to drive really kind of very conservatively and respectfully on the highway. You're probably going to upset some people because you're going to go right on the speed limit. And then, yes, you can get, 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers, or about 40 some miles per gallon. If you're unbelievably careful on the highway, and I'll let the current hybrid owners talk more about that, like Ridgeview, for example, has a lot of experience. So yes, you can get about 5.5 to 6 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway with a hybrid, versus an EcoBoost. You're going to be more around 7.5 to 8.5 liters per 100 kilometers, but that's not twice as much fuel. And it will provide twice as much fun if you like to have a little kick behind that pedal. So that's my big advice for the day. If you want to get one of these, shop your dealership, ask the questions that I just mentioned. Make sure you walk away with having left them they need to be able to answer yes when you ask, do you confirm your orders? They need to say yes. And they need to actually know what it is. They need to send forward your driver's license. They need to send forward the purchase or lease offer. They need to send forward the build sheet. And they also, ideally, I know in our region, we send a sheet saying that the buyer won't be exporting the vehicle within the first 6 months and 15,000 kilometers. And also a sheet that says the trade value will vary with the market. In case the dealership has, spun a web of lies, Ford does their best to clear that up and set things straight with a sheet that the customer signs. For us up here, Ford likes to see those sheets. So there's also another sheet that just goes through saying this is a reservation. It's not a guaranteed build, but that Ford will do their best to get it built and in a timely manner. It also basically goes on to say that, if the dealership promised you some dates, they don't say beware of a dealership that lied to you, but the paragraph talks about how Ford cannot guarantee any dates. Well, obviously, if the dealership was like, order with us, I promise to get you a hybrid within 3 months. Well, when you go to sign that sheet, Ford wants to see that sheet because Ford then sees that their customer, despite what the dealership may have said, whether they're lying or they're just don't know what's going on, well, the buyer can actually see the real deal right on the sheet from Ford. So Ford is working hard to make sure that things get done properly. Now, of course, there's always rule breakers in every profession. And there's some dealers that are great dealers and there's some dealers that are bad dealers. So what can you do? I'll tell you what you can do. You shop your dealership first of all, and then get as much as possible in writing. Look over that purchase or lease offer. Check out the interest rate. Make sure the price matches up with the internet. And then, of course, finally, get them to sign off on everything. If you think that it could be an issue, sign off and look through the purchase or lease offer and make sure there's no dealer administration fees, no hidden fees, no markups or market adjustment fee. Yes, the market wants this truck bad. It's the number one truck. I'm giving it my number one truck marks as well. It's the 2023 truck of the year. It's the best truck to buy. It's the smartest value, and it is a good truck. It's very safe. We've seen several people total these. They are very, very safe in an accident. It's unbeatable, and no one currently is coming close to competing with this. Now, that's what you can do for the Ford Maverick. You can find an EcoBoost on a lot. If you believe in miracles and unicorns, maybe you'll get a hybrid, but those often will go to people who are on wait lists. So what can you do? Order up your Ford Maverick hybrid. If you find a really trustworthy dealership, maybe it's worth ordering an EcoBoost with them because that EcoBoost might come in as quickly as 2 to 4 months. A lot of the EcoBoosts that we've ordered up have been coming in roughly 2 to 4 months. That's the 2-liter EcoBoost, all-wheel drive in our case because we don't have access to the front-wheel drive. So if you're looking for a Ford Maverick EcoBoost, shop your dealership. If you really give confidence to the dealership, maybe it's worth ordering one up from them instead of taking one off a lot from a dealership that's going to want markup or dealer fees or administration fees added on. So that's how you can save thousands of dollars on the Ford Maverick. It's how you can make sure to not get fooled on the Maverick, and you can really avoid headaches and bust right through that BS. So that's what we can do for the Ford Maverick. Now, folks, we've got to talk about the Ford Bronco. Ford Bronco is fantastic. We're on our third, and this one we've got a wild track, and we are really truly thinking that this is going to be the one that we keep. I've now had it since July. I have no desire to switch it in any way whatsoever. The wild track Bronco is perfect for us. If anything, I'm almost tempted to pick up this Badlands Bronco, and oddly, we've had it for a little over a month. We've had it for sale for like 6-7 weeks, folks. We've got big news here. So WTF is going on with the Ford Bronco. And what do I mean by WTF? I mean what the Ford is going on with the Ford Bronco. So no swearing on this channel. We try to keep it wholesome. At times we wish certain elements were more like they were in the 1950s, especially when it comes to the price of groceries and how one individual could support an entire family with a house, a car, and the grocery bill, really everything, financially supported by one individual. And now 2 individuals have trouble supporting just each other and no kids. Things have gotten out of control, but the Ford Bronco will keep you under control when you're in out of control situations. Let's talk about how you can get one. Let's talk about what you can expect for delays and order times. Pricing. Let's talk about the Ford Bronco. First of all, I want to say that it is fantastic in staying under control in hard to control situations. It is an absolute blast to drive at high speeds, whether you're on the highway, whether you're in town in a really like slow speeds in town, and horrible bumps. We have that, if we go into Montreal, we've driven around in Montreal with the Ford Bronco, and we were blown away by the fact that we just had a fantastic drive, even though we were driving in some of the worst city streets in North America. Even drove up on a sidewalk with it when I was in Montreal, but we've also blown down good speeds on the beach. We've gone through forest roads. We've taken our Bronco off-roading. We've done the Bronco off-rodeo twice, but we've done a good amount of high-speed Bronco off-roading, and just the dirt roads in the mountains here can be really rough. And the Bronco stays under control at these high speeds. And it's the big difference with the Jeep. The Jeep is better at crawling, but the Bronco does an amazing job nonetheless. We're talking about the difference between, let's say, 9.5 out of 10 and a 10. But when it comes to on-road driving, either as a daily or just high-speed driving across forest roads or high-speed off-roading, the Bronco is unbeatable. There's none of this left, right being pulled because you're going through bumps. The suspension it's independent, all four wheels, and the suspension just eats it all up so you can hold the steering wheel and go in a straight line. So you don't feel the steering wheel. If the road's beating up your Bronco, it's only going to be beating up the suspension. It's not going to be beating you up via or through the steering wheel rack. A Jeep, you will get beat up. If the road's beating up your Jeep, it's going to beat up your suspension, it's going to shake through the frame, and it's going to shake through the whole steering. And you're going to have to work really hard to keep that Jeep going in a straight line when you're going at a decent speed over bumps, whether they're highway bumps or off-road, forest road, gravel road bumps. You're going to have a little more trouble. Now, what's going on with the Ford Bronco? Well, one way to look at it is prices are not going up significantly. We can also say prices are going up significantly because the base model is gone. Big Bend for 2024 is now the new base model. So if you wanted a base, yes, prices for you are increasing tremendously. But, for the rest of us, nice little Ford Authority article from January 1st, 2024. Brett Foote, thank you very much. I covered this also, of course. I covered this back in, I think, September, if I recall correctly, across many videos. But for the big part, most models are going up by $200, but we get a 12-inch screen. All the models come with marine grade vinyl now, and washable floors for, if I recall, all models, except I think the Outer Banks is still carpeted flooring and the Wild Track, but the other models like Big Bend, you got the washable floors, or at least rubberized floors. Please, in the comment section, let me know. Now, we really like marine grade vinyl. So the cloth, some of you will be upset and sad because the cloth is gone. It's out. You're gonna have marine grade vinyl seating, but we had that on one of the three Broncos, and it's still Marie's favorite. We had the Badlands and marine grade vinyl, 8-inch screen, no heated seats, no keyless entry. So that's why we ended up getting the second Bronco. The WB, no cocktails for me this evening because I had a few too many cocktails on Friday, and now I'm going to give that liver a break. And I started this show late because I ate some seafood I probably should not have eaten, and I'm a little rough right now. But the Wild Track is a big consideration because remember in 2023 the Wild Track got the Haas, or maybe it was 2022, but the Wild Track now comes with Haas 3.0. It's almost the suspension. It's not quite the suspension that you get on the Raptor, the Ford Bronco Raptor. So that's basically Haas 4.0, and you got your Haas, 2.0 on all your Sasquatch models. So it's fantastic, but I could live without it. So now the Wild Track, you're going to be spending almost 10 grand more than you would on a Badlands. So a nicely equipped Wild Track, 83 Canadian, Haas 3.0, fantastic suspension. It is incredible at eating bumps. It's great. But there's nothing wrong with our Badlands Bronco or our Outer Banks Sasquatch, both Haas 2.0, and it does the job. So I'm not here to try to talk anyone into spending as much money as possible. I'd just say that any Sasquatch package is an amazing vehicle. Also, Bucko here just saying the vinyl seats are great for cleaning with the little kids. Such a good point, Bucko. We found it was great with the dogs. We had the dogs. Lily threw up on the seat a few times. She was getting car sick on the way down to Florida, probably just because she was anxious, not used to not being in the vehicle. So yes, great point, M. Peugeot. Some Badlands, of course, will come with the higher grade Haas because it's Badlands Bronco automatically gets the Sasquatch suspension. It gets Haas 2.0. So the Badlands non-Sasquatch is an incredible deal. And Wild Track, it's like, hey, should you really spend an extra 10 grand for a Wild Track? Well, I'd say you could look at it as it's a bad deal. It's so much better of a deal to get a Badlands because you got the Sasquatch suspension and you can live with 33s. Instead of the almost 35s that you get with the Sasquatch package. But I see the Wild Track as a budget Braptor without these huge fender flares, which I think only look good if you get them on black. And I think Ford also realized that people weren't having that matte black plastic because now you can get them, I guess now they're painted, which I think they always needed to be. So some changes for the Ford Bronco, but what's the big news about the Ford Bronco? I feel the huge news. Let's head back to those photos. The huge news is, we've got, at this point, we had 2 out back, 2 up front, and 1 in the showroom, 5. And now we've put all 4 of them, except for the one in the showroom, up front. So now here you can see we had 3. One's kind of hiding back there, and it's kind of it's a lighter color. It's cactus. So you're not, or white. We're not seeing it very much, but it's white. It's back there. So you've got 3 Broncos right here. We had 1 on the back hill and 1 in the showroom. So 5 Broncos for sale, and they are not moving all that fast. And I know they're moving more so in the States, but in Canada with Broncos being available, you should absolutely in Canada be able to get one of these at MSRP. No one should be charging dealer fees, dock fees, administration fees, or market uptake. I'd say if you're in the States and if you're in an area where no matter how many phone calls you make, the ones that are available are still well over MSRP, you can always work on getting a Canadian Bronco. Just work away at getting a Canadian Bronco because we'll have used ones. The trade-in prices on Broncos has dropped significantly. It's dropped significantly, tremendously on all vehicles, but it has dropped significantly. We're not taking in on trade 1-year-old Broncos for sticker price. So you always have the option to get a Canadian Bronco with a little bit of mileage on it. You should be able to get a great price on that. And I think if you're willing to call across the United States, you will come across a few Broncos. But the fact that Ford is now going to be slowing down sending Broncos to Canadian dealers, there's going to be, I think you're going to be all right if you order one up. I don't think we're talking about a 2-year wait anymore. Just try to avoid things like ordering it with mud flaps or the PP protective paint film. Just try to, go with a straight Sasquatch or a straight Badlands. Don't add in extra little factory accessories like mats and mud flaps, mud guards, paint protection, clear paint protection, tape. Avoid the little extras. And I think that we're going to start seeing some very, very reasonable times unless you order up something that's known to be rare. So what are the rare models? Well, your rare models. Ford Bronco Raptor, that's a rare one. Most dealers will get 0 to maybe 4 if they're a huge dealer. We're only getting 1 per year. Avoid the limited heritage edition. Even it might be a little hard and a little bit of a wait to get your standard heritage edition, the non-limited. And I can't confirm this, but Everglades might be a bit of a wait. I'm not hearing that Ford's got, the full valves open on this and they'll produce as many that get ordered. But it's a model definitely worth considering. I think the 2.3 liter is a good engine, and Peugeot has thoroughly tested it out. He goes by it. I did a test drive on one recently. It's a very, very good engine. I like how the 6-cylinder twin-turbo 2.7 liter is both port injected and direct injected, if I recall correctly. The 2.3 liter is only direct injected. Marine Vet Tim has several Broncos sitting at, thank you so much, Marine Vet. Really good to know that Tim, the Ford video guy, so that's Tim Bartz at Long MacArthur Ford. If you're in the States, he's got some Ford Broncos to sell. He's also a dealer that has had a great amount of success because they're a dealer that is honest and fair with people, and that's the type of dealer that Ford wants to send units to. If you're fair and good to your clients, you have a really good customer review base, and as such you sell a lot, well, Ford, that's Ford's number one target for sending vehicles to. I think that's part of the reason why we most of the time get everything that we want. We generally ask for something and we get it. Of course, we're asking for a Ford Ranger Raptor because we've got 3 or 4 ordered in the system. Mine's the first. I'll likely get bypassed by some customers, but we're still only going to get one Raptor for the entire year. And so far, I haven't seen any Ford Raptors actually get scheduled. However, Ford Rangers standard, that's the XL, let's say an XLT with a 2.3 liter engine. I have already seen some build dates for that. Our dealer has a build date for that. And on the forums I follow and in our community, people are letting me know. For example, someone recently told me that their Ranger XLT 2.3 liter is scheduled for, I believe they said the 26th of February. So production will be back on the Ford Bronco. And for your Ford Bronco, if you order one up, you can find one on a dealer lot. But if you do order one up, of course, make sure that the dealer has allotments that they're going to be getting Ford Broncos in. Find out where you are on their waiting list so that you can know, ask them how many you're going to get for the year. Where am I on your list? So if they say they're getting 10 for the year and you're number 30, find another dealer and make sure that the dealer will sign the build sheet and will sign a purchase or lease offer that shows the price of the vehicle with the interest rate, and that they sign it. So then you have their signature. Make sure you have a copy. So you now have a copy of how much they said that they would sell you the vehicle to. Keep all that paperwork, folks. Don't just think, don't just count and expect the dealer to do everything in your favor and will do everything to take care of you and make you happy. Yes, some dealers do work like that, and some dealers do not. So in every profession, there's good workers and bad workers, honest workers and dishonest workers. Plan for the worst and be happy if you get the best. Now, we've talked about the Ford Bronco. Let's see if we've got any questions about the Ford Bronco before we move on, so that I can do my best to answer you, of course. Sorry, Peugeot does not have a 2.3 liter Bronco. Sorry, I thought with the times you've told me that the 2.3 liter is enough. I thought that one of your Broncos had been a 2.3 Peugeot. So thank you very much. My memory isn't always perfect. Actually, it rarely is perfect, so sorry for that. As Ford Bronco questions come in, I'll just start getting the photos ready now for our next segment, which is going to be on new models. So a little new model update. So new models right here. All right, folks, let's get on with the show. Of course, we're still on our topic of WTF is going on. Who is in deep water coverage? Well, we're not quite talking about who's in deep water yet, but we will talk about new Ford models. So Ford new model update. Now if you're watching from the live, of course, you just heard about the Ford Ranger. It's just to say that for the new Ford Ranger 2024, Ford is producing those. You will get scheduled soon. It will all depend on where you are on your dealership's wait list. But I think most people are going to get these relatively quickly. We're talking, from today, I'd say you'll start getting scheduled for the month of March, April, or May. Unless, of course, you're waiting on a 2.7 liter, because Ford Ranger news for the 2.7 liter is that we were told there'd be a 2.7 liter, but we still don't have it in the order guide. At dealers, we still can't choose it, so I can't just build a Ranger, add the 2.7 liter, send the order off to Ford, and then just wait. I can't even make the request. So if we're lucky, it's going to turn into a job 2. And that means halfway through production, Ford will come out with a new order guide, and we'll see the 2.7 liter option. Will it be a standalone, or will it be attached to a new model like the Wildtrak? I don't know yet, folks. Maybe they don't want to take away the spotlight from the Ford Ranger Raptor, because that's a 3-liter turbo, 6-cylinder. That's a 6-cylinder in a V formation with a turbo on for each cylinder bank. And it's incredible. It sounds great. It accelerates great. It's a fantastic engine. I love it in the Ford Explorer ST. I love it in the Lincoln Aviator. But the Ranger weighs less than those vehicles, weighs less than the Aviator, similar in weight to not a huge difference with the weight of an Explorer. If someone wants to look up online and let us know in the comments, how much does a Ford Explorer ST, not an ST line, but an ST, what's the weight of that? And what's the weight of the Ranger? I think the Ranger is going to come in with a 2.3 liter. It's about 4,400 pounds. So let's say it ends up being 4,600 pounds with 4,600 pounds with the 2.7 liter engine. But we might get it as an engine only available if it's on a special model like a Wildtrak or something. But we'll find out. But the 2.7 does need to be in the Ranger. It's going to be an amazing value. And if I can't get my Raptor, well, I would be very happy slapping on the 2.7 liter engine option, that beautiful, powerful V6 that is incredible in an F-150. It's going to be mind-blowing in the Ranger. It's incredible in the Bronco. Well, I want that on a Ranger. And I just modify my XLT. Throw on some big tires. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of fender flares, but definitely throw on some big tires, lift it up 2 inches all around, or at least a leveling kit so the front goes up 2 inches so it's nice and level. That's what's going on with the Ford Ranger. No news yet on the 2.7 liter. And the Ford Ranger Raptor, some dealers will get 0. Some dealers, huge dealers, might get 4 or 5. Globally, you could say we're a medium-sized dealer because we're not selling 10,000 units per year like the biggest dealerships that are out there, but we're still selling about 1,000 units per year. So we're a good, solid, medium-sized dealership, and we're getting 1 Ranger Raptor. So not enough for the demand, but in regards to demand on the Ranger, we don't have a huge waiting list for the Ranger. So even if someone orders a 2.3 liter XLT or Lariat Ranger now, of course, they're all 4-door with a 5-foot box. There's no reg cab or super cab option. But if you order that now, you're going to get it within a reasonable time. Order now, probably going to get it between 4 to 8 months. But there's some other very interesting models coming in at Ford. Ford's not in deep water when it comes to models. We'll be talking about who's in deep water. If you order an Everglades, very cool, not quite new model, but you could maybe be in deep water with these, because I'm not getting any indication at first. It was very clear from Ford that many dealers would get 0. Some dealers would get 1 to 4, depending on their size. We only got 1. That's for the size of dealer we were. We could only get 1 Everglades per year. And I haven't gotten any contrary signs to say that now, doors wide open, take as many Everglades as you want. So that is probably going to be a bit of a collector. Especially as time goes on and we're on to maybe being forced EVs, and that manufacturers will only be allowed to make EVs, electric vehicles, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. Well, by then people will maybe say, wow, a big a 2.3 liter, a big 4-cylinder engine. Wow, that's so cool. And they won't care that it's a 6-cylinder or a V8. They'll just be happy to have a petrol powered engine on a great looking vehicle. So I don't think you're going to be in deep water if you order up an Everglades. If you go too low in the water though, and you get water on a lot of water splashing around in and around your alternator, yes, then you'll probably be in some deep water. Now, Ford electric SUV, new model for Ford. We've got this camouflaged vehicle, and coincidentally, what's going to be going on at Ford? Well, the Ontario plant is going to stop making the Edge, the Ford Edge, as well as the Lincoln Nautilus. You'll have some Lincoln Nautilus. Lincoln Nautilus is still going to exist, produced in China. And I've seen the new Nautilus, and I'm blown away. It's an incredible SUV. But Ford, coincidentally, the Edge is gone, but they're coming in with a Ford electric SUV, and it's Ford Edge sized. So I think this is essentially a replacement for the Ford Edge, and a replacement in the sense that it's going to have very similar dimensions. And you can tell that the driver sitting there, it's about the size of an individual that'd be sitting in an Edge. So we will have something Edge sized, but it's going to be all electric, and we can expect to know more. An arrival date still to be determined, but maybe mid-2024. This could be a very quick process, like the Lightning. They might just say, hey, it's going to be available, and then if they announce that mid-2024, maybe we're getting it sometime in 2025. Here they say arrival date mid-2024, but being that we don't have anything confirmed yet, I'd be surprised unless they're just going to kind of slide it in without making a big, huge press event of it all. With it all, as they did with the Bronco, the Maverick, and the Lightning. Remember, those were vehicles that we were told, like, hey, wow, we've got this new vehicle, and then we put in our order, and we waited. And we waited. And then we waited, and then we waited a little more, and then we got frustrated, and we complained. And then we waited, then we complained, and then when it came in, pretty much everyone's like, I'm so happy I waited. Best decision I ever made to wait. Of course, the people that didn't wait and bought something else, they're happy about, they say they made the right decision as well. But based on how happy, the type of comments that I'm seeing from people who waited for their Ford Bronco or Maverick, generally people saying this is by far the best vehicle I've ever had. I absolutely love it. The comments are so positive. We've owned a Maverick. We own a Bronco. These are incredible machines, folks. They're really, really worth waiting for. But maybe Ford isn't going to make us wait so much. Maybe it'll just be announcement, and then 3 to 6 months later, they're showing up at dealers. So we're going to have a Ford Explorer EV. Ford and Volkswagen have an incredible partnership. Ford is going to be sharing some things such as the Transit Connect. They're going to be sharing some platforms, sharing battery technology, and based off the Volkswagen ID4, we've got this Ford Explorer EV, and they're thinking it's going to start at less than 40,000 euros. So we'll see about that, but I think so far I'd say that's an attractive vehicle. I'd like to know what you all think in the comments. I certainly hope it doesn't come with only one mag option. I'm very disappointed. The Ford Lightning, the fact that the XLT and the Lariat, I have a Lariat, the fully loaded Lariat, and I've got the same look at least for Canada, as an XLT, even the standard range battery. So I have the extended range battery Lariat, and I've got the same wheels and generally pretty much the same look as a standard range Lariat. And there's $30,000 difference between the two vehicles, and no one at Ford thought like a proper car guy or gal and was like, no, people, when they spend more, they want more. They don't want just more battery autonomy. And I'm like, wow, an extra 100 pound-feet of torque and more battery autonomy. If you spend an extra 30,000, you want it to kind of show, because it kind of hurt you 30,000 more times. It's like 30,000 little pokes of a needle more. Well, you put in a little more pain into the game. You want a little more gain from the game. So Ford, come on, bring out the not just mag options. If anything, let people have life. If they prefer that XLT mag, let them have it. But then don't charge them more if they choose a different model and they want to look different than models that cost $30,000 less, because that's the big problem with electric vehicles. manufacturers need to know how they need to figure out how they're going to differentiate themselves from their own models to other manufacturers' models. Is Ford getting away from larger electric vehicles? Now, that's a great question. It would make sense in regards to autonomy. You know, you look at my colleague and friend's Mach-E, and he's driving around with his electric SUV. And at this time of year, I think he told me he's getting 29 kilowatts. He's burning 29 kilowatts or using up 29 kilowatts per hour. And here I am at 44 kilowatts per hour with the F-150. Why? Because it's a brick and it's, you know, it gets stuck in the wind. Drake, it'd be great to know what your dealer is going to do to fix that remote start issue on the Bronco. I'd love to hear about that. So you can email me, either find me on Facebook at Johnny's Car Care and Reviews or Instagram as Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. That would probably be the best options for contacting me. So this vehicle is going to be a little less long than the current Explorer. So it's going to measure 4.47 meters long and 1.63 meters high. Now, meters to feet, if I recall, it's about 3.3. The difference, a meter is about 3.3 feet. But you can always just use your, if you have a smartphone or the internet, you just type in meters and then in feet, and it'll tell you the answer. So interesting vehicle. They're thinking it'll do about 311 miles or 500 kilometers. Now let's move right along. You've got the Ford Mustang Mach-E Rally. So it's just an added trim, pretty fancy trim though. 19-inch alloy wheels, Michelin Cross Climate, 235/55 tires, a really nice rear spoiler, redesigned grille, new headlight graphics, and more ground clearance. So you can kind of speed around driving down those mountain back roads at high speeds. Little air, the wings, they're actually made to keep vehicle downforce on a vehicle so that as you go fast, you don't just kind of have less weight on the wheels as the air underneath the vehicle pushes it up. In which case, then you have less control with the wheels because less wheel weight is on those wheels. Well, that's why wings exist. So this thing, put up a little higher, but then a wing to give it more downforce, so you still have control under high speeds. They're talking, it's going to have a 91 kilowatt battery and 2 electric motors. Of course, it'll be all-wheel drive. It's the Rally Edition. 480 base horsepower and a whole lot of torque because it's going to do 0 to 100 in 3.5 seconds with an estimated range of 280 miles, which is 450 kilometers. So it'll be able to take, like other Mach-E's and F-150s, charging up to 150 kilowatts. And that's one area where Tesla excels. They let you charge up to 350 kilowatts. But it's all, the faster you charge a battery, the less it affects long-term reliability. It increases the chances for having issues and problems. And we'll get to that later in the show because it looks like having an electric vehicle means you increase your chances of having problems by 80% compared to a petrol-powered, gas-powered vehicle. So I think that's always interesting to know. Now, we probably won't get this, but we've got the Ford Puma EV looking pretty. I bet it's going to be a pretty good looking vehicle underneath that camouflage. So it's based on the Volkswagen platform. The new SUV will not be much bigger than the current one. They consider that an SUV, even though it's pretty low to the ground, but I think it looks fantastic. And I would be interested in a Puma if it was offered here because I like how it looks sporty. It looks like a sporty four-door, and I like sporty four doors, and I wish Ford had a station wagon. I think the Audi station wagon is an incredible looker, and I wish Ford had a really sharp-looking station wagon. So that won't be very all that powerful, but we've got that right there. The Ford Puma EV, because currently not a ton of power on those Pumas, but they're thinking it could have the powertrain from the Courier e-Tornado, so 134 base horsepower and a battery of unspecified capacity. So who knows? If it's got a gasoline engine, with 134 horsepower, an engine, as well as then an electric motor. Who knows how much power it's going to produce? That, I don't think we're going to get that. So it's not, we don't need to spend too much time on that. We can spend time with those that we love and on the topics that we love as well. So that's that. And we're going to just timestamp this right now and get on to the next topic. And actually, we could wrap up this topic. There has been talk on certain channels saying that there's going to be a Ford Ranchero and there's going to be all these other models. There's going to be, they talk, I think it's Charge Drive, one of those AI generated channels where you never see an individual's face. Of course, they can make claims like there's going to be a Ford Ranchero. Right now, there's no plans for it. They say there's going to be 100% Ford Maverick EV. Ford has, all that's been said is that Ford will electrify their icons. Yes, the Ford Maverick is absolutely an icon. It's the best-selling hybrid truck. It is favored by almost every journalist as the, last year's best truck, this year's best truck. But that doesn't mean it's going to go full EV. So here they are electrifying your icons. Just means that they'll either be standard hybrid, which means no plug-in option, and you get, 20-30% fuel savings in town. Not much fuel savings on the highway. Just look at that Ford F-150 hybrid, the Power Boost. There's proof right there of what I'm saying. Look at the Ford Explorer hybrid, proof of what I'm saying right there. Now we can go on to say, I'm not a huge fan of channels that go on to say just about anything because they never show their face, so they've got no skin in the game. So they make these outlandish claims to say, maybe they figure, what? Who cares? If I burn this channel, I'll collect the $40,000-$50,000 from making a whole bunch of videos at 100 or 200,000 views. And, if people ever hate it, I'll just switch the name and I'll have AI generate me other content for a different channel. Oddly, pretty much always the same voice, but I still have no internal, nothing at Ford saying that there's going to be a Ford Ranchero, nothing confirmed yet on a full electric Maverick EV. Yes, it's an electrified version, is definitely happening, but I don't know if it's going to be, well, I know there's almost certainly going to be a hybrid all-wheel drive, but I don't know when we'll get a plug-in Maverick, and I don't know when or if we'll ever get an full electric Maverick. So I've got to keep it straight with everybody, keep us on the right track. I don't want anyone getting fooled, and of course it doesn't bother me to have to, do a little bit of BS busting. Now, on to the next topic. I'm just going to get the photos ready here, folks. Separated every show this week into a topic here to make it a lot easier. So let's get right on to this topic. I'm going to have fun with this one. This is all very, very positive, mostly. Timestamp right here. Sorry, I have something in my throat. That's why I've been drinking a lot of water here. So, episode 4. Do buyers and journalists actually like Ford? Do they dislike Ford? Do they like Ford? There's a bit of mixed information out there, and it depends on the time of year and whether a new model has popped up or whether it's been out for a year. But a lot of this has to do with getting views, making money. So, let's talk about journalists, customers, owners. Do they really like Ford? Let's talk about recalls, awards, and sales. So let's get straight into this. There's a lot of people that, you could say temporarily don't like Ford because really popular models like the Ford Bronco and Ford Maverick have had really long waits for them. Now remember, every single journalist, when the Ford Maverick came out and the Ford Bronco came out, they're saying this is the best thing since sliced bread. But that's kind of what journalists do. When they know a model has a fan base already, that people are excited to hear about a new model, They just go on about how incredible it is, and they don't point out any negative points, which I find is rough, because then people throw down deposits at dealerships, and some dealerships, once you actually start finding the truth and the real deal about the vehicle, some dealerships won't give you back your deposit. Here, it's actually a legal requirement, and I'm in the business, and I had a dealership for a boat dealership, boat and four-wheelers and all the outdoor fun stuff. That dealership refused to give me back my deposit, so I lost $500. Now let's hope Porsche, with Porsche prices coming down, let's hope I get back that $5,000 deposit and actually I could go to court for it because it's $5,000. It'd be worth my time. But you might even be living in an area where it's actually legal to hold on to that deposit. So that's the problem with that I have with journalists just being 100% positive about a model that's just been announced. My first Ford Maverick video was to say, hey, there's going to be this new small truck coming out at Ford, and I talked about, what we could probably expect in regards to total weight, cabin size, bed size, total length. What I suspected was coming, that it'd be smaller than the Ranger, but it talked about bed size. I looked at some spy photos, tried to measure things out based on those spy photos. That was my first video. My second video was once we actually had the info. I was like, hey, here are some things we're gonna love and possibly hate about the Ford Maverick. And I got a lot of heat for that because every other journalist was saying this was going to be the best thing since sliced bread. But then, I wanted to point out some things that could be problematic. And then actually I made a video being like, hey, I'm sorry, because some of the things I thought could be problematic aren't problematic. It's about getting the right buyer for that truck. And there's a lot in regards. There's a lot that's great about the Ford Maverick, but nothing's ever perfect. No human is ever perfect, and when you try to say a product or a human is absolutely perfect, I think you actually turn off more people than you turn on, because all the reasonable people are going to say, like, I can't take this seriously. Nothing's ever perfect. I want to say to Jay's Aquatic Fun, your Maverick arrives this week. Congratulations. I'm convinced you're going to love it. There's so much positive with the truck, and I'd love for you to come back on the live and in the comment section. Give us like a list of 10 things that, 10 points on it that you like or dislike, or actually a mix of both. And you're allowed to have all 10 be, I love this. It can be 10 things you love, or it can be a mix. But I like to put the real deal when models come out, and that's just not how journalists do it. They talk it up when it's new and the excitement's on the product. And then once it's been in everyone's mind, you're like, well, we can't do any more videos about how amazing this new model is. People are starting to they've spent hours watching videos, looking at photos. People know what the Ford Maverick, Ford Bronco, the new Honda Prelude, or the new RX-7 Mazda, people know what it is. So now what can we do? Well, let's make money trashing it. And then it goes to the other extreme. It goes to severely negative information. Now, traditionally, journalists really give Ford a hard time for recalls. And this really gets on my nerves, because what do I despise the most? Wasting my money. And how can companies waste your money? Well, look at a fantastic example. Companies can waste your money when they say you're the problem, not the product. Our Porsche 911 from 1999 to 2008, they're perfect. If it's a Boxster, it started in 1997, the IMS problem. They can just sit there and go, no, our product's perfect. 82-year-old with a blown motor at 10 or 15,000 miles, we're not going to pay for that. The 82-year-old clearly raced the Porsche 911 or Porsche Boxster too much. When in reality, it's unbelievably clear that it's the IMS bearing. And even though for certain model years, roughly, some say it's over 10% of the engines blew, Porsche never took responsibility and never put a lifelong warranty on that IMS bearing. Or that would have been one less expensive option, or to just every 911 and Boxster that got sold say, come back, we're going to swap that part for you. Well, that's what Ford does. Ford does a lot of recalls because they say, come on back, we're going to swap that part for you. So let's put a nice little background here that we can all be entertained. So I think it's great that Ford actually takes care of their customers. They're not willing to just tell you that you're an 83-year-old or 82-year-old who clearly drove their Porsche 911 or Boxster into the ground. You raced it, and that's why the motor blew at only 10, 20, 30, sometimes 50,000 miles. I really like it when a company actually takes responsibility for their product. Now, journalists, like everyone, try to get by with the least amount of, make as much money with the least amount of work. And they want to make money. And it doesn't make for a very exciting story. You know, it makes for a much more exciting story to say, don't buy Ford because look at all these recalls. They're the king of recalls. 2023, I won't be surprised if we crack the 100 recalls total at Ford. It will affect millions of people. It's going to affect over 5 million owners. That's Ford taking responsibility for the product. Like Porsche should have for their IMS bearing. Like Toyota should have for certain products. I've had certain Toyotas that are just, it's like, and again, the Toyota MR2 needs an alternator again. I'm not even at 100,000 kilometers. GM should put a lifetime warranty on their AC unit because they always seem to break either right near the end or right after the end of the warranty, but they don't. So I like companies that I think as an owner, you might be a little annoyed if you have to go to the dealership a few times, but just plan on doing your recall with your oil change. Ford will have recalls. They have recalls for seatbelt chimes. They have recalls on the Ford Maverick, we had recalls for an airbag that ever so slightly overinflated. So we've got recalls for just about everything. And it doesn't mean that the company's garbage. It doesn't mean that the company's bad. It's something to know before purchasing. Some companies will, have really Honda Civics. For so many years, the paint is just horrible. The clear coat just peels off and then your paint fades and it looks like crap. Is Honda Civic telling all the owners, you know what? We painted them all poorly. If it happens to you, doesn't matter your mileage. We used the wrong paint or the wrong paint process from the beginning. That's so unbelievably obvious. And hopefully Honda doesn't sue people who point out some pretty obvious things because they're still on, as far as I know, they haven't sat back and said, you know what, we painted all those Honda Civics wrong. So even if the car is 7 years old, you've lost some of your clear coat, come on back. That's our problem because it is their problem in my opinion. So Honda, don't sue me. Don't be little crybabies and sue. Certain years of Teslas had paint problems or fitment problems. Well, I like companies that do recalls, and Ford does a lot of recalls for a lot of really minor things too that they could probably just ignore. Now, when it comes to whether customers like them, well, customers have loved their Ford Bronco and Ford Maverick if and when they actually take possession of them. But of course, that made for a slew and a small army of upset people. And journalists, of course, will say, you know what, we've got a story we can tell here. We've got people who are upset. Let's build a story and let's make it, really an attack story. So I like to try to be a little bit more on the positive side when possible. And obviously, when the data info dictates that I should not be positive, I point it out. Now, we've got some awards that have gone down at Ford. Many awards. Of course, it's been very popular, the Ford Maverick. So the Ford Maverick here, we've got trucks. We don't have any rating yet from Motor Trend on the new Ford Ranger. But we already know that comes with a great transmission. It comes with a very reliable, quality 2.3-liter engine. Tons of power from that 4-cylinder. So I think the Ford Ranger has a solid chance in 2024. This time next year, we'll be, I think, finding out that it's Truck of the Year, unless the Ford Maverick still stays Truck of the Year. The Ford Bronco, Motor Trend puts an 8.1 out of 10 on it. I'd say based on how much owners love this vehicle and the fact that it considerably beats out its competitor. It came in to compete with the Jeep, and it it definitely is better, a lot better in a lot of ways. Not rock crawling, but definitely better when it comes to being able to drive in a straight line and not punishing you through the steering wheel when you're driving over uneven, potholed roads. Ford Bronco does that so much better. Ford Edge, I have to say, my experience with Ford Edges is it's one of Ford's most reliable products. Very, very well made. Maverick, made in Mexico, extremely well assembled. Huge kudos to the team out there. But you've got top ranked, the heavy duty truck. So that's the 250s, 350s. Ford Super Duties are top ranked. They're also incredible sellers. The Ford F-150 has been a bestseller in the full-size truck segment for 40-some years in Canada, 50-some years. So the truck has been pretty unbeatable. The Ford Mustang, you can order a 2024 Ford Mustang and get it within a very reasonable amount of time. And that's been the best-selling sports car, the most popular sports car for decades and decades. But do expect that we might see the last V8 in one of these at the end of this decade. So 2028 for maybe stretched out to 2030, but this is the last, this series, the S650 series, if I recall correctly, is the last series of Mustang that's going to come with a V8. And that's pretty confirmed, pretty clear, it's been made pretty obvious. So if you want a collectible V8, well, you're probably not going to be able to get a 2024 Shelby. They're saving those Shelby GT350 engines. They're saving those for the F-150 Raptor R and letting all the new excitement for the new model go to the new Mustang. But we're going to start probably seeing a GT500, a Shelby GT500 come 2025 or 2026. That would be a great model to collect. Or the last year they produced these, make sure, even if the 5-liter, the standard 5-liter is incredible, 480 horsepower, you will not be disappointed. One of the best sounding V8s you can get on the market. Now, Motor Trend puts the 2024 Ford Mustang as the #1 sports car when it comes to performance, and it is a value that can't be beat, and it's performance that's very difficult to be beat. It's fun to drive. Just remember, if you're trying to drive at like a racer, 10 out of 10 on the danger level, if you've turned off your traction control, keep in mind, when you let go of the accelerator and the tires stop spinning, it will launch you in whatever direction you're pointed in. And that's the simple reason why people hit crowds or drive into the other intersection when they're leaving. All these videos from leaving a car meet and Mustangs causing all sorts of mayhem. Just don't turn off the technology that keeps you in a straight line. The stability control, leave it on, because those tires grip into the pavement and launch you in the direction when you let go of the gas pedal. And so many people let go of the gas pedal once the vehicle starts to slide too much. You got to kind of just control your sliding and keep sliding, because if you let go of the accelerator pedal, you're going to get launched. Or let it go once you're in a straight line, not when you're facing the crowd or facing oncoming traffic. Now, #1 compact truck, the Ford Maverick. This is by Motor Trend, but so many journals have put the Ford Maverick as a #1 pick. I agree completely. Talked about it when we were talking about the Ford Maverick. So I won't talk. There's no need to talk more on the subject. The Maverick is an incredible truck, and probably, whether you get it as a front-wheel drive hybrid now, you'll probably have to order that. Very hard to get your hands on one. And it's going to be so much harder to get your hands on an all-wheel drive hybrid, probably going to get announced and available for 2025, but the waiting list for that will be very, very long. The Bronco Sport Heritage, I think, is a great SUV. Love how it looks. So Lawrence, congratulations on that. We've got one as a courtesy. Imagine our dealership put Bronco Sport Heritage as a courtesy vehicle. So clients actually get to drive that sometimes, and they're usually pretty happy with that. Yeah, great question, Arcubo. I don't have anything confirmed, because guess what? The all-wheel drive hybrid Maverick still isn't confirmed. Nothing's official. But I can tell you that from pretty much day one, it was already always in the plans to hopefully try to get that ready. It was planned to be ready for 2025. It doesn't mean it will be ready for 2025, but it was part of those original plans. And you could say that's like a to-do list, a hope list, because honestly, men, when your wife makes you the to-do list, how many of you every single week get it done right on time, the entire list? Let's not expect Ford, and this is they never publicly said it was on their to-do list. So really inside information. So these aren't guarantees. I can just guarantee you that there is a lot of talk behind an all-wheel drive all-wheel drive hybrid Maverick. There's talk, but there's no guarantees yet. But what I can tell you is, if we consider the all-wheel drive unit to be something that weighs between 200 to 300 pounds with added moving parts to turn those back wheels, what can we expect for increased miles per gallon? Well, compare a front-wheel drive EcoBoost to an all-wheel drive EcoBoost, and there's your answer. That, let's say, 1.5 miles per gallon difference, or 1 mile per gallon, I'd say probably about 1 liter per 100 kilometers to 1.5 liters per 100 kilometers. That's going to be about the cost for having the extra power going to those back wheels. So you've got 200 to 300 pounds turning, you've got friction and whatnot. So that's what you'll have to contend with. So Ford winning lots of sales. The trucks have been top sellers for decades now. The F-150 is incredible. It deserves to win all sorts of awards. It doesn't rust. I take on trade 4 or 5-year-old GMs and Dodges, and yes, sometimes after only 5 years, the GM has rust, starting in the fenders and on the cab. I've taken on Ram 1500s that, I've taken on even as new as a 2019. And the owner put air suspension on the back, balloons as we call them, air suspension. And that made it that the shocks absorbed less. The balloons were stiff and absorbed less than normally the suspension would. And as a result, because they're blown up for heavy weight, as a result, the frame absorbed a lot more than usual. And, well, we've got crooked frames. So, Randy, yes. Miles per gallon are so important. I used to say that a lot back at the beginning of this channel. Like, I don't think that was now about 3 years ago. I talked a lot about miles per gallon because that's always been really important to me. And I might still prefer, I don't know, I might prefer the 2019 Ford Raptor, F-150 Raptor that I had over my Lightning. We'll get to that. So, lots of awards for Ford, lots of recalls. Owners generally love their Fords. Ford has a high rate of reselling vehicles to the people that bought them. Sales are going very well at Ford. Now, I think generally in the whole market, my viewpoint is we're starting to see auto sales numbers that kind of indicate a bit of a recession, because while overall the market sold about 10% more vehicles this year than last year, there's so many more vehicles available in 2023 than there were in 2022. So many more vehicles. Millions of more vehicles. Let's say inventory went up by, well, it's hard to say because like some dealers had 10 new vehicles available and now there's 110 vehicles. So you really say there's 10 times more inventory? I'd say it's almost easier to kind of look at production. Because now vehicles come in and go in as an inventory instead of already being sold to a customer. So production has gone up by so many times more than the 10% that auto sales went up. Production must be up about 40%, and you've got auto sales up 10%. So, and if you compare those numbers to, the last 20 years, these aren't the best sales years that we've seen in the last 2 decades. Arcubo, my pleasure. So let's talk about episode 5. Let's get right in here. Gonna time mark this. Get a little photo shoot going here. Get the slides ready. We're gonna be talking about the Toyota scandal. So that's interesting. Toyota caught up in a scandal, and that's gonna affect owners. It's gonna affect future buyers. It's definitely gonna affect the manufacturer. They're not getting they're going to have a bit of a lot of issue with this. So let's see, Toyota scandal. We've got that right on the internet. Make sure I don't have any issues here. All right. So this isn't just about stocks. We've got a whole lot of problems to talk about here and, maybe some solutions, what we can expect. Just try to get this little... always didn't have as much trouble when Marie was on the show with the technology, but we don't know when Marie will be coming back because, well, she's taking care of the newborn baby. So that's going to be for quite a bit of time. So let's get this show started right now. Episode 5, Toyota scandal. It is going to hurt current owners. It's going to hurt future shoppers. And it does spell it spells trouble for Toyota. It smells like trouble. It looks like trouble. And it's going to affect probably pretty much every manufacturer that is under the Toyota umbrella. And that's because Daihatsu, I hope I'm saying that correctly, and I don't mean to offend anyone. I think it's so important to be as kind as possible to one another. We're all going through our own lives and our own difficulties, our own issues, and we all just want to be happy and be able to take care of our families. So don't take it the wrong way. Doing the best I can here. Daihatsu has a lot of, there's so many vehicles affected by this. Thousands, tens of thousands of vehicles affected by this. And it is a safety scandal. So there's a safety recall, and it's a scandal because there was some wrongdoing, some cheating of tests. It's I'm not going to say who didn't cheat in school, because yes, a lot of people didn't cheat in school. Let's not just assume everyone cheats. And when it comes to safety, you definitely should not cheat people out of safety. Don't give them the idea that they're going to get a safe vehicle. Ha! And Peugeot, that's a good one. Did Toyota with Stellantis? Did they perform coitus with Stellantis? Well, you'd almost think that maybe Daihatsu is their love child, and Daihatsu is now causing problems for Toyota. Because a lot of Toyotas are going to be affected by this. So what's the story here? Beyond just stocks slumping at Toyota because of this, a 4% drop here. 1.6%, 4% drop, which you'd think it would have dropped by more, but I guess not. Oddly, media and journalists didn't talk to no end about this story. It kind of just went in under the radar. Not like the Toyota in 2010 when they had their brake failure issue. That got talked about quite a bit. Every media source covered it, and at first, if I recall correctly, Toyota's like, no, it's nothing wrong. It must be like people's carpets catching, like rubber carpets and plastic carpets catching with the brake pedal, and then like, oh, it's us. We're going to work this out. So sorry. And they did a really good job of working it out. But will they do such a good job this time? Well, I don't know. It's going to affect the recall is going to affect 1.1 million vehicles. So if you're a current owner, let's hope this isn't like the famous airbag recall that affected so many manufacturers. Because yes, those airbags were dangerous. Someone in their family actually had a piece of, when the airbag went off, they had a piece of metal shoot through their shoulder, removing mobility. So Joshua Rittenhouse, Johnny, you could just say Toyota and Stellantis bumped uglies. Yes, that would get the point across. They might have bumped uglies because, well, Toyota trusted Daihatsu to get them quality parts, or let's assume. We can't assume that anyone gave the order to not to cheat safety standards, but essentially parts were put in vehicles for when they were tested for safety, and the vehicles passed the crash tests, but then the vehicles that were delivered weren't delivered with the parts that the vehicle model got tested with. So it's a way to get put in great parts, test, get a good score. But, just like someone that cheated on a high school exam, ask them a question that was on the exam the next day, and they're like, they've got no idea what they're talking about. They're lost. Well, some of these owners are going to be lost, you could say. It's going to affect almost 24 models that are sold under Toyota's brand. So 64 models total. So Daihatsu makes parts for Toyota as well as those companies under Toyota's brand. So other Japanese car makers, manufacturers are going to be affected. 64 models so far are known to get affected. 24 of those that are sold under Toyota's brand. And it was a rigged side collision safety test carried out for 88,000 small cars. So we'll see if also this grows into more of a story. Will it go into not just their small cars, but will it affect their SUVs? Will it affect their trucks? Daihatsu had responded on this, and they don't know when they're going to be able to resume shipment of certain parts and models. So that's also going to affect the total production coming out of Toyota. Toyota's earnings. It's going to likely be on their earnings a limited impact because, well, Daihatsu is going to be responsible for this problem. There's a 1-month suspension of production, which would equal 120,000 vehicles and translate to a revenue reduction of 240 billion yen, so $1.68 billion in losses for Toyota because they'll get about 120,000 less vehicles produced. Now, the company's supply chain in Japan consists of 8,316 companies, according to Reuters. And this is going to affect quite a few. So I'd love to know more. Daihatsu's stock plunged by 10%, so much more than the 4% that Toyota had their stock drop. But if you're not a stockholder, you probably don't care about that. What you care about is knowing, is your vehicle safe? And this is where it's going to affect future sales. Depending on how many people recall or hear of this story, as a potential Toyota buyer, are you going to be, are you going to kind of pump the brakes and say, I don't know, they're cheating safety tests. They're putting safe, good quality parts for the crash test, but that's not what they're delivering. Do I want to still do business with a company that does this? Now, I'm surprised. I bet if this was Ford, every journalist would have, made this, the stories about this wouldn't have ended, and it would have gone on for weeks and weeks and weeks. But it's Toyota, and Toyota has such a loyal fan base. They probably don't want to even hear about this. When you're a mega fan, unfortunately, of anything, an individual, a company, you like to think that everything is just all roses, and you don't want to hear data that conflicts with your opinion that you've created. Because unfortunately, sometimes people will sort of build it into their personality. They're like, I'm a Toyota guy, or I'm this politician supporter. And then if they hear contrary information, instead of listening to it and reevaluating, they're just like, nope, not possible. And it's wild. You see these videos, they always make me laugh. You can see them, videos who are kind of have blind faith for Trump or blind faith for Biden. I think it's even wilder to, at this point, still have blind faith in Biden with what's going on with the economy, with all the money printing, with what's going on with the wars. Remember, generally the best presidents ever were the ones that did everything to fight the military complex so that there wouldn't be wars. Remember JFK fought and did everything he could to not have a war with Cuba because 150,000 soldiers would have been, American soldiers had been, it was pretty much certain by the strategists, military officers, strategists, that they would lose over 100,000 soldiers in the first 5 minutes of the war as they arrived on the beach of Cuba. Kennedy was like, no, I don't want that. He pulled troops out of Vietnam, and 30 days later he was assassinated, and quickly after, the new president had troops right back in Vietnam. So it's always good to have an open mind and be willing to, not build something into your personality so that you refuse to hear outside data and facts because it hurts your own self-image. We're our own individuals. Let's be have our self-image. Randy, thank you for the comment. I am having a huge amount of problems with really any politician that's currently printing money, spending money like an alcoholic, drops the bottles, and it's, you know, if you paid for that alcohol and it's your own alcohol, it's not nearly as bad as when you're spending other people's money. And it's also wild to see all this money get spent. But that's, you know what, this is a rant topic. What is important is, even if you're a die-hard Toyota fan, just take this into consideration. There's the brake scandal. Now there's a scandal in regards to safety tests. Just let this story develop. And if you find out that it affects a model, you know, the bigger models, like let's say you love Toyota RAV4s or Toyota Corollas, or, you know, if you see that it affects your model, then maybe consider looking at other options and shopping other models from other automobile companies. So Toyota has said, and I like this, they're going to recall 1.12 million vehicles worldwide. They're not trying to fight this. They're not trying to say, you know, oh no, it didn't affect any of our vehicles. No, Toyota's going to recall 1.12 million vehicles worldwide, mainly in the United States. And obviously, mainly in the United States means also Canada. Kind of the boat comes over to us. So let's keep that in mind when we're shopping. There's also, they need to fix a faulty sensor that could cause airbags to not deploy as designed. The Ford Maverick, no one's perfect. The Ford Maverick had an issue with its airbags too. They're overinflating by, if I recall, I think it was an eighth of a millimeter. And there was a recall for that. And then journalists are like, look at how many people were affected by recalls at Ford this year. The reason for the recall is so important. And here, you've got the reason for a recall being deliberate scandal. Deliberate swapping of parts to pass tests with higher cost parts and then swapping them out. One result is airbags potentially not deploying. That is pretty dishonest, in my opinion. And if you're if you're a diehard Toyota fan and you've got it tattooed and you're not willing to, because you've basically brought it into your identity, please don't. Please just look at the fact that Toyota isn't perfect. And I have trouble sometimes owning a Toyota because there's die-hard fans out there that are like, no, Toyota's the best and they're so much better than everyone else. And if someone tries to, talk any facts to me, they're up in arms, they're ready to fight. It turns me off to the brand. I'm not brands that have like a huge die-hard, unrealistic, non-critical thinking, illogical fan base. It's like, I don't want to be associated with that. It's just a huge turnoff. Maybe part of the reason why politically I'll always kind of be, in the middle, always ready to hear varying perspectives. And I don't think I'll ever be able to say, I certainly will never say, I'm a diehard liberal voter in Canada, no matter what. I've voted liberal before, and now I would not. Back to the whole spending money, dishonesty. I can't support what's been going on. And also, I was going through the Epstein list, and Sophie Trudeau was on that list. And I have to confirm that to see if it's actual fact. But there's also 2 redacted names, and they've been redacted, and we're being told that they're I believe the wording was 2 of the most respected politicians in the world, or 2 of the most respected individuals in the world. So I'm wondering if we'll ever find out who's on that list, but they need to go hard at putting some people in jail. So that's enough for scandals. And, that was a little mini rant. Nothing wrong there. We are talking about a topic called Toyota Scandal, and scandal is part of the title. So slid in a little extra scandal there. Sorry if that offended anyone that feels that I should just stick to cars. It wasn't too long. So thank you so much. Please don't forget, I'm Johnny from Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, running a small family business. Mostly now, well, not mostly, all on my own now, because Marie can't help whatsoever. She's got a baby full-time and is really working hard. So it would really help out if you hit that thumbs up button, share this with some people that you think could know this, could benefit from having this information, and please hit the bell notification so that at least every time a new video comes out, you have the option to watch it. And remember, you're never forced. I got a lot of comments this week like, Johnny, stick to cars. Johnny, it's, politics, that's none of your business. Don't go there or stay out of it. I think liberty is everybody's business. I think humanity as a whole needs to work together to ensure that we have liberty, freedom, freedom of movement, freedom of choice, and freedom from imminent danger and whatnot, repression, suppression. I think we're all in this together. We need to share some kindness with one another. But if you don't like if you got the bell notification turned on and you don't like one of the videos I put out, because, you're a diehard Biden fan and you're like, how could someone ever say anything against Biden? He's never started, he hasn't been involved in any wars, and he saved the economy because it was so good before, it was so bad before he became president, and he's made the economy so much better and, whatnot. If that's your thought process and it's going to offend you to watch a video I've made, well, Jeremy Clarkson said it really well. Jeremy Clarkson, I believe it was Jeremy Clarkson, someone said, getting offended by what you found on the internet is like choosing to step in dog crap and then getting really upset about it. But you knew it was there, you saw it coming, but you went and stepped or clicked on it just the same. Well, I'm a human being. I don't need everyone to agree. And actually, it's great if you don't agree with me. Tell me why with, facts and data, ideally. And I'll probably be like, wow, this is incredible. I wish I would have thought of this on my own. And I'll almost certainly thank you. I'll be like, thank you so much for, pointing out whatever viewpoint you're trying to point out. And Canada and the US are very much entwined. I sometimes see us as a vassal state of the United States. We follow you guys into war. And Peugeot, thank you so much for the rant money. Very, very kind of you. And we will get, if I have time, I'll do a proper rant at the end, because I've got material that it's not time sensitive, but it'll be fantastic when I come out with it for those that do like the rant. Now, that fully concludes the episode on the Toyota scandal. Please don't forget, hit that thumbs up, share this. Bronco fans, don't get offended. No, they're tough, even though their vehicle doesn't shake them up and force them to be tough as if they're driving an older model Jeep. And until Jeep gets the independent front suspension, it'll have its pros and cons, but getting shook up is just part of the process when you have a straight axle in the front. And people that want to deny that, they're just not being realistic. And the WB, I also like Corvettes. I'm thinking that my Porsche deposit will either turn into a Corvette deposit, hoping that I get that this summer, or I'll invest that money into the family. So, and the Lightning still has the original plan was to have the Lightning cost me nothing, save up that money and have a huge $30,000, $40,000 deposit down payment on the Porsche. But now instead we're gonna be upside down, negative equity on the Lightning by quite a bit. So driven wild outdoors, no death wobble. That's what they call it. Great point. Fantastic. At one point I showed a fantastic Family Guy video of the Griffin family driving a Jeep, having fun off-roading, and well, it did not look like Peter Griffin had all that much fun. So we're going to be talking now about the Cummins Dieselgate. I never really liked the company name Cummins. It just seems weird, but now they're in their own Dieselgate. Remember, Volkswagen had a bit of a Dieselgate, a huge Dieselgate, and there is horrible consequences for owners. Let's go through that right here, right now on Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. So welcome to the show, folks. Thank you so much for making it in. We're going to be talking about how Cummins is in big trouble, and this does directly affect Dodge and Ram. It's not going to hurt their pocketbook, but it's going to hurt the trust of their owners. It's going to hurt the enjoyment of the product by current owners, and might make some future and current buyers slow down, hesitate, and question whether they get a Dodge Ram. Because this Dieselgate is going to hurt owners. This is going to be a problem, folks, and it might even cause delays for getting one because they can't continue to put out vehicles that have a known issue. Everyone's got to follow the laws when it comes to pollution laws, and well, Cummins cheated. Sorry, they have not publicly accepted responsibility or said that they did anything wrong, but they're not going to go to court. They're going to pay immediately a fine of 1.7 billion for diesel Ram pickup emissions cheating. So they're paying a fine to not go to a court and be proven of cheating, but it's kind of sketchy here. So you've got Cummins, they're going to pay exactly 1.6 billion for emissions cheating, according to Green Car Reports. And they violated the Clean Air Act by installing a so-called defeat device. This was similar to what Volkswagen did. And basically an emissions defeat device is that when you're on a dyno, the technology, the program, the computer in the vehicle knows that you're on a dyno. So what does it do? It basically produces less power, runs cleaner. Well, its goal is, of course, to run cleaner and pass the test and get good results. But the result from that is that on testing, it's A-okay because it's running with less power. And that means that if you're sitting back and say, this doesn't matter, it'll just be a recall. You know what? It does matter, and it probably will just, for the most part, possibly be a recall. But that recall is going to almost certainly make your diesel truck much less powerful. John B., thank you so much for saying it's a good show. Really appreciate when people chat with each other, share kindness, share knowledge in the chat, share it with the show, because people who rewatch this show do have the option to read all your comments. So I love when people comment. We're a community that helps each other out. So if you think you know how this is going to affect people, please throw it in the comments. If you recall what happened to Volkswagen owners back in, 2019, the Volkswagen Dieselgate, what essentially happened is customers either had to have their vehicle modified, in which case, after the fact, you're stuck with the vehicle. And guess what? Some people were dissatisfied because the vehicle, now that it was the Volkswagen, just like these diesel engines that need a lot of power to pull their huge campers, to do their workload. Guess what? Some people are going to say, ever since my vehicle got tuned properly, got the proper program to create the correct amount of emissions, it sucks. It doesn't do the job. It doesn't pull well. I'm worried, and I'm thinking that I'm almost certain there's going to be certain people that say, the power I had was just enough power, because not everyone's going to get the high output diesel engine. A lot of people at Ram will have saved money, already gotten the engine that has so much less torque than what you get out of the Ford. The Ford the Ford diesel engines, the 6.7 liter has 1,050 pound-feet of torque at 1,800 RPM. You have a high output engine putting out 1,200, if I recall, 1,200 pound-feet of torque. Well, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe from recollection that your standard diesel engine has about 700 and some odd pound-feet of torque, and you pay to get up into the 1,000 pound-feet of torque range. So some people had also, I even know one, had a bad dealer, salesperson, sell them the standard diesel with its whatever it is, 700 and some odd pound-feet of torque, but told them that it was the right engine for pulling 32,000 pounds. And he had made it very clear, I'm going to pull 34,000. So you're sure it's really made to pull 32,000 pounds well? Yeah, don't worry about it. It's great. But it was the standard engine. So already, once he started driving that, he was not happy. Called me up. He said, I made a huge mistake. I should have got your Ford with its 1,050 pound-feet of torque at 1,800 RPM. This is not enough truck for me. I need to switch it. But he was crazy negative equity, like $25,000 of negative equity, because then it was, a used vehicle and would have to be sold with a used interest rate. I think what I'm trying to get to is you're going to have probably two or three options. One, get your vehicle reprogrammed. It will then pass emissions laws, but have less power. And for some, that will be very dissatisfying. sell back, take a check, sell back the vehicle to the producer. That might end up being an option. But just taking a check and not modifying the vehicle will not be an option, because these, over a million vehicles, the government's going to want them to not be polluting as much. So you can't just sit back and think this is going to be without any consequences whatsoever, unless you own a 2,500, 3,500, 4,500, and you're really towing way under spec. And if you need the true specs to your vehicle, check out your manufacturer's towing guide. Never trust the salesperson, because they might not know, they might be dishonest, they might be tired, it could be a bad day, they might be the nicest, most professional individual generally, but it's the one of the 4 days in the entire year where they're just off their game. They might not have heard your question properly. It's written in black and white and sometimes a little bit of color in those towing guides. So go look at the Ram towing guide. Make sure you pick the model with the correct cabin size, the correct box length, whether you're single rear wheel SRW or DRW is for dual rear wheel. And with that print off of the towing guide, then you can ask the salesman, sales individual, point to it and be like, okay, so the 4-door here, we've got this box with this differential, or ask them which differential does it have, and use the little chart to find out exactly how much you can pay. Don't just, do the quick Google search, be like, how much can a Ram 3500 tow? Yeah, they'll show you the biggest, highest number, but they don't all tow that biggest, highest number. It takes a certain engine, it takes a certain differential, it's with a certain cab and box configuration. So all that is super important. So Ram, probably its profits, money-wise, they're going to be fine. Cummins is going to have to pay Ram for these recalls almost certainly. It's probably not going to hurt Ram's bottom line. Ram will continue to be able to produce trucks. It's not going to cause them any sort of bankruptcy. Cummins won't be causing them any type of bankruptcy. They've essentially put out a statement saying, we'll survive this. We're going to get through this. So they're going to have to look at what they can do now for fixing it. Pretty obvious. You completely detune the truck, take away a lot of its powers, so you pass those tests. Pay Ram for the trouble that it's going to undertake in making these modifications. And this is too bad. Cummins, moving into the future, is going to definitely need to invest to find out how they can get to passing those tests and still producing a lot of power. Because once the new power figures come out, they're going to have to show less power, and that's going to cause it to be more difficult to compete with GM and Ford. So that's why in recent years, Cummins has attempted some technology pivots, including potentially to hydrogen fuel cell tech that it showed at a fuel cell semi-truck prototype in 2019 and a battery electric demonstrator prior to that. So they're looking to see where they can pivot. You can find this article at Green Car Reports. Now, please comment what you think. Comment how you think Ram is going to respond to this. Comment what you think is going to happen to owners. I can tell you, I think it's going to be just like the Volkswagen scandal. They're going to either need to get it fixed or sell it back to the company. Now, we'll find out more about this story coming up. That's that for this story. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, share this with some people that will benefit from hearing this, because it will definitely benefit our small family business that I'm now trying to run without Marie's aid, because, well, she really needs to take care of the baby while I try to get through these shows and get to the, one of my rants. We can talk about save the steak. But if you don't like the rants, please just don't click on them. Don't be offended by my viewpoint if you think you will be offended. And if you've got thick skin, well, join us for the down and dirty when we get into a rant. Now, we got to talk. 2023 auto sales, a success or a flop? This is how every model performed. So let's go over and look at that right now. And actually, if you guys don't mind how every model performed, I'd like to move the show along and actually save that for next week's live because that's going to be every model. It's going to take up a good amount of time. We've been together for almost 2 hours, which I really thank all of you for doing. So thank you for taking this time. If you're having a cocktail, let us know what kind of cocktail you're having. The WB, I do enjoy that as well. That Tim has his rant section. Love that channel. Really like that guy. Good, very solid individual that I think we can all say that he's very much worth supporting. And also, of course, I've got my good friend Dwayne from The Outsider. Sorry, my brain's going off because I'm trying to think of 3 things at once. But you all know Dwayne from the not The Outsider reviews. I'm getting mixed up with another one of my friends, which I think is worth supporting, which is the Outsider reviews. But anyways, I'm having a brain meltdown, so someone in the comments section, help me out. I know we're a community that shares a lot of kindness, but next week, I'd like to talk about 2023 auto sales, whether it's a success or a flop. I'd like to talk about Ford and VW, because we've got some amazing news out of Ford and VW, and it's pretty much there's been next to no coverage on this, so I think it's going to be great news for everyone. So that'll be 2 episodes for next week, and we'll also talk about huge news as Biden shocked us all, as car makers are demanding us to ditch EVs. I don't want anyone getting fooled on that, and I do have a lot on that, and it's all printed off, so I'm actually going to skip right into that episode now. And then we'll see if we have time for a rant at the very end, because we've already done 4 episodes. So let's keep this to 5 episodes and a rant. So let's get right straight to it. I'm going to put the slides in here. All right. So welcome to the show. This week, we're covering huge news. Biden must be shocked because most car makers are making a demand to ditch EVs. Well, at least that's what one big YouTube story is covering. Their title really is huge news. Biden shocked as all car makers demand to ditch EVs. We're going to be talking about that, and I'm putting a question mark on that because I'm going to say don't be fooled. We'll cover the real deal. They charge something. It's an AI generated. I think it's an AI generated channel. But let's get to the real deal behind this. Yes, Biden is being demanded to not ditch EVs, but to slow down. And that's the real story here. It's not 100% all anti-EV. It's just a slowing down so that manufacturers have a chance to adapt. And there's a lot of amazing technology coming down the road that could very well kind of destroy our trade-in values on the current technology. So why have millions of more people driving electric vehicles under current technology when the charge network could use a little bit more time to develop? And we're not that far off from incredible new battery technologies. And I'm going to cover exactly in depth what that new battery technology is next week in a live. So make sure not to miss next week's live as we talk about Ford and VW and how they have some amazing news. I still think I'll be one of the only channels, or the only channel that'll cover that news, even if I delay it by a week. But the huge news here when it comes to EVs is, yes, Biden is being asked not to ditch, but slow down the EV production. You've got over 4,000 dealers who've signed a letter to Biden to slow down this whole push for EVs. And it's a bit of a forced push. No one likes to be forced, folks. I think we can all agree with that. And it's really just the forced adoption that they want to, get ditched. And, you look at Canada, you look at Europe, some people have, some countries have laws where all electric, all produced vehicles, all sold vehicles by 2035 are going to be electric. But we need to actually get the network up and running. So what's going on with this story? Even manufacturers, not just the dealers that are loading up and having on average an 88-day supply of electric vehicles. And these are expensive. These vehicles come with huge interest payments on them. In 88 days of inventory, it's starting to get on the lengthy side. It's starting to be a good amount of interest that you're paying on each vehicle. So the dealers are asking it, but the manufacturers are also asking Biden to slow down, and other politicians to slow down this fast, quick push to full EVs. The energy grid, the individuals in charge for clean, renewable electricity should definitely be asking to slow down. What are we going to do? Build more coal plants to power these things? Fast chargers take up a lot of power. When you're on that 350 kilowatt fast charger, I don't have the exact math in front of me, but I'll try to get it for next week. If I'm not mistaken, you're using up the electricity of like 108 homes for that one fast charging a vehicle. So you've got new EPA regulations that are coming into effect in the coming years. I've talked about this in other episodes. It's that whole fleet average. Well, the 50 mile per gallon fleet average means that to survive that, unless there's a huge change in petrol-powered vehicle technology to make them consume far less fuel, it either means gas-powered vehicles need to end up with new technology and be very light and very small, the whole vehicle. We like our space. Americans and Canadians aren't tiny little 5-foot tall average people. We need our space. We have families. We'd like to continue to have families. We'd also like to save the steak, of course. But the new EPA regulations are really tough, and Biden has put in some really tough EPA regulations. So in the coming years, this would force manufacturers to either pay billions in fines, as Dodge already has, and that's why Dodge has had to cut the Dodge Challenger and Dodge Charger out of the line, because they're selling a lot of them. They're popular, they're good vehicles, but it was making their fleet average go up, so they had to pay billions in dollars in fines every year to the government, or buy carbon credits from Tesla. So yeah, they bought the carbon credits from Tesla. They're paying to make their competitor more competitive, making it cost more to catch up, because your competitor is being paid money by you and just moving more and more, ahead. But even Tesla has been dropping the prices on their models to try to keep volume up and not have a bad sales year. So this rush to get into EVs is costing manufacturers billions of dollars. So these stringent emissions laws would require roughly 2/3 of all new vehicles produced to be fully electric by 2032. Meanwhile, makers like Honda, Toyota, BMW, remember, Toyota is very, very slow to get into the full electric game. They like hybrids and plug-ins. But the likes of, Honda, Toyota, BMW, and Porsche, they're slow on the EV game, and the Porsche doesn't want to get rid of the gasoline petrol-powered 911. They want to sell enough Taycans and enough electric vehicles to still be able to produce their beloved petrol vehicles. So many feel that going all electric across an entire fleet isn't the solution yet. And remember, battery technology is going to be changing. We're going to be looking at solid state batteries. Ford and VW are, mostly VW through the company QuantumScape, are looking at solid state batteries. And right now, QuantumScape has tested a 24-layer battery, solid state battery, for 1,000 hours, which is the equivalent of doing 300,000 miles, and it only lost 5% degradation. It only lost 5% of its capacities in regards to autonomy and charge. So all those charge and decharge, full battery to no battery, only caused a 5% loss in the stats of the battery. Autonomy, charge time, being able to hold a charge. That's many more times more reliable than the lithium ion batteries that we're creating right now. Ford has lithium iron phosphate batteries in the work, which would remove some of the environmentally horrible and elements from the lithium ion batteries. So that's the next closest technology, but there's going to be upcoming technology in the next few, between now and a couple of years. We'll have new batteries that people might considerably like more than lithium ion, which could affect resale values. And we also have the solid state batteries, which could, when they come out, kind of destroy the trade-in values of current electric vehicles. So I think everyone's kind of like, hey, hold up here. So this rush has caused EVs to be and I think being that companies are in such a rush to produce these EVs, well, Consumer Reports says that they're 80% less reliable. And that's according to Consumer Reports. Consumer Reports is saying that owners are finding that, 80% more than petrol-powered vehicles, they're finding 80% more problems. So fit and finish, assembly, spacing between the lines, paint problems, battery problems. Now, surprisingly, hybrids, which Ford originally was, all in with hybrids with Toyota. Toyota continued to be all in on hybrids, or almost all in on hybrids. Surprisingly, hybrids have 25% fewer problems than EVs, which is odd because what I hear from consumers on a regular basis, folks, is that they expect a hybrid to be twice as bad as either an electric or a gas, because they figure, well, it's going to have all the problems that electric vehicles have and all the problems that a gas petrol-powered vehicle has. So it's going to end up with at least twice as many problems. But no, they're 25% fewer problems on a hybrid. Toyota has gone hard on hybrids. They love their hybrids. The previous CEO left, and then the new CEO came in and was like, okay, now we're getting in with the EVs. The old guy, he wasn't into them, but I'm going to do the right thing. But now it looks at like Toyota's like, yeah, hybrids are a good solution. So this actually comes as a big shock to many consumers who really did think that when you have a hybrid, you've got both systems, it's going to be twice as bad. And it's not. It's 25% less problematic. And I think that's maybe why Toyota was so into their hybrids. And I know Ford, that, it looks like they did a lot of work. They're now working with Volkswagen. They had a partnership with Toyota in the past, and those vehicles are incredible. You look at the C-Max, the Ford Fusion, fantastic. You look at the Ford Maverick, still, the transmission on the Ford Maverick and the Escape, this goes back, it's similar to what was seen back when Ford and Toyota were working together. And you know what? The Ford Escape, the Ford Maverick, the C-Max, the Ford Fusion, the Toyota RAV4 hybrid, the Prius, these are all great hybrids, whether they're traditional hybrid or plug-in hybrid. So traditional hybrid, you have a smaller battery, about 1 to 3 kilowatts, and it generally saves you 20 to 30% off your fuel bill. Whereas a plug-in will have anything from, a 10 to 20, 23 kilowatt battery. It's not completely a fully electric vehicle, but it'll usually allow you to do 20 to 50 miles in all electric mode, or you don't force the vehicle to be all electric and you benefit from using about almost a third less fuel. So more than half as much fuel gets used when driving a plug-in hybrid. That the plug-in battery, you do need to plug it in every night if you're driving it every day. Now, where are EVs having problems? Well, first of all, there's battery issues, and not just that they get roughly 30% less autonomy in cold temperatures, but extreme temps can have an impact on long-term durability. Charging too fast, allowing too quick of a charge is harder on the batteries and most certainly affects durability. Not preconditioning the battery before. So you leave it out in the hot sun or the extreme cold and you don't have it plugged in first and you just get in and you start driving it fast. Not ideal. So, and of course, if you have an accident with an EV, your insurance companies are liking less and less these EVs because they're charging more for the insurance. Because if you have an accident and the battery cell is affected currently, incredibly expensive to switch these out. Now, second reason that we've got more problems on EVs, rushed EV models have caused problems for makers like GM, where many GM EV owners have complained about poor assembly and rattles. Charge Drive covered that. That's true. Good point. But They also commented just general poor build quality. That I'm not too sure about, but that's what ChargePoint was saying in regards to battery problems, EVs at GM. Now, they pointed out third issue with EVs and their batteries are charging issues. And I agree, and I'm even going to add to what ChargePoint said in their YouTube video. They said finding a good charger is just the first issue, and that's so true. You need to find a good charger, one that doesn't have the cables cut, one that currently works, that's connected, because in some areas, they're not so great at getting them running and maintaining them, and you can have as many as 40% of the chargers in a given area not function, and your screen doesn't always tell you if they're not functioning. Someone needs to report it into the system and whatnot. So there's also another issue that I'll add on. Many chargers are 50 kilowatt or less. And these 50 kilowatt chargers I've experienced with the Lightning, you stop for a meal, you've been plugged in for an hour, you don't get that much power back on 50 kilowatts. At home, I charge at 40 kilowatts, and it takes me over 13 hours to, well over 13 hours to fully charge my battery. Generally, I always have like 30-40% left, and it takes me 10 hours to get up to about 100%. But that's at 40 kilowatts. So 50 kilowatts, not that effective. Finding a 150 kilowatt charger can be harder, and finding a 350 kilowatt charger can be very difficult. And some companies like Ford don't want you charging at 350 kilowatts because of the long-term durability, wanting to avoid fires and whatnot. And as such, they won't let it. They only take 150 kilowatts. You can go to a 350 kilowatt charger and they'll only let in 150 kilowatts at most. And here's another issue. You plug into a 50, you often don't get 50 kilowatts. You plug into 150, you pretty much will never get 150 kilowatts unless you know a few tricks. And the 350 kilowatt, you might end up getting 200 or 250 kilowatts. So it requires a little more planning when you want to make a trip. And even if you plan your trip accordingly, you're not going to get 100% charge out of, or power out of, that charger. So what can you do to get closer to 100%? Well, it's kind of like mentally, it is preconditioning your battery. You put it in your vehicle's navigation system that you're going to go to a charger so that the vehicle can pre-charge your vehicle, prepare your battery for taking in that big charge. And it seems to help on my Ford truck, and it seems to really help with my colleague and friends, Mach-E. He does that trick, and he said it's working for him really well. So far, many have noted that when you select the charger in the navigation menus, things are better in regards to getting more power to your battery. Now, another issue is how much electricity is actually required and used when fast charging. At the moment, EVs only make up 7%, 7.9% to be more percent of total sales. Is that a young Hillary Clinton in the back? Well, that certainly makes me trust. Oh, no, it's not. Okay, I was about to totally lose trust in EVs altogether. Just a joke. Don't be too offended. And if you are, well, I don't know. I'm a little bitter since the Epstein list came out. Lots of evil people out there. So EV charging on fast chargers, you got only 7.9% of all vehicles being sold as EVs in the States. And already, I'm going to do the math for a future episode, but I'm thinking on the fast chargers, you're using about the power of 108 homes. So I don't know how, and I had a clip for it, and it's been censored. The clip I was going to show you has been censored. And if we make it into the rants of all the clips I should have been censored and not allowed to show, all the other ones are worse and more like, we need to pay attention to this. We need to save the steak, folks. So I have in my notes, let me play this clip for you. And I can't. I tried to get it going, and then I had some seafood eating issues, and that's why the show started late this week. But let's move on. The fourth variable or problem to consider, folks, and this is a problem you're going to want to avoid, is that most EVs have a range of about 300 miles. So that means avoid the problem altogether. I'm not saying don't buy an EV. I'm saying have a Bronco on the side, have a Jeep Wrangler, have a Volkswagen, not a Jetta. Oh, the resale is bad, but the Volkswagen hatchback the Golf has good resale. That'd be a good option. Mazda 3, lovely vehicle. So anyways, have a petrol powered vehicle on the side for when you want to take trips. When we go to Florida, still trying to figure out, I want to get together with the community in Florida, take Ridgeview's invitation, and maybe stay with him for a few days. And I want to meet you all at the restaurant, at a Ford restaurant in Florida, but I can't take my Lightning. In the summer, it would be 10 stops of 45 minutes once I'm at the charger, plugged in and charging, and that's 6 hours. With driving off the highway, it's not as if you go down the highway, and it should be this way. It'd be ideal, but at every, welcome to our state, chargers. Here's a bathroom on the side of the highway, chargers. Things are going to get better. The network in certain areas is horrific. In other areas, it sucks. And in some areas, it's great. In Quebec, it's one of the best electric networks. I still was annoyed because I was like, I'm not sure if I can get to the 150 kilowatts. So I took a 50 kilowatt. I couldn't get it done. So, and DMAC makes a great point. Vehicles are barely affordable. How can we afford an electric vehicle? They generally cost more. 4 high, 4 low, I will want to meet you in Florida. But right now, we've got no one to take care of the dogs, and I don't want to pay. I've got 2 poodles. I don't want to pay $100 for the 2 of them, $100 or more per day and night, so that I leave for, let's say I leave for 10, 12, or 14 days. If I'm driving down, I'd be gone for 14 days. Well, heck, you can do the math on that. That would hurt. So if I come down, I might have to take the plane from New Hampshire and come down alone. Just have to figure out if I can be away from my ladies for that long. Now, you don't want to be away from your electric vehicle for too long, because all batteries slowly lose their charge. So it would make me nervous being like, I'm going to go to Florida for 6 months. I'm going to leave the Lightning here out in the cold outside. That would stress me. I haven't made a plan for that yet for later on in life. And I don't know what all in the electric future, what people are going to do in northern climates when they want to go to Florida for 4 or 5 months. I guess you leave your vehicle plugged in the whole time. Anyways, that means it's not at the airport. So there's a lot of, uncertainty. One of them is generally EVs make 300 miles. You want more than 300 miles of autonomy, you're going to pay a fortune. And just generally, all the electric vehicles cost more. So if they don't come with subventions in your area, government money, they're pretty expensive. So 300 miles is at ideal temperatures. That can be cut down in extreme cold or extreme heat. I haven't tested in extreme heat, but I've tested electric vehicles in extreme cold. You can lose 50%. Of course, preconditioning your battery and having it plugged in before taking it off. Heck, my Lightning even tells me outside temperatures are cold. Plug it in when you're done driving. But generally, you lose about 30%. It all depends on how extreme the weather is. So how do manufacturers feel about this? Well, Mercedes is calling the EV market a brutal space. Ford has cut its planned production in half, and that's planned production. Everyone's saying Ford's cut production in half on their EVs. No, they've cut their planned production of the Ford F-150 Lightning. And remember, originally when they first announced the vehicle, they were saying they had a certain plan. Then they said, well, you know what? From original numbers, we're going to make twice as many. Then they said, we're going to make twice as many. So many times they said they're going to increase production. And originally it looked like by 2026, the plan was to make 600,000 EVs per year. Well, on the F-150 side, which they're losing money when they sell you one, roughly $32,000 per electric vehicle, Ford is going to cut half of the planned production. So half as many from their high last numbers. So if they were planning on making 400,000 Lightnings per year, it means now they're planning on making 200,000 Lightnings, and hopefully won't have to pay billions in fines or carbon credit money thrown to Tesla. So it was they ended up with very, very high targets, and they've cut back from that. Now, let's remember that Ford had planned on building 2 million EVs per year by 2026. So can you blame Ford when they're losing money to cut back on the Lightning production. I certainly am not taking it. Doesn't rub me the wrong way. So Ford will have lost roughly $4 billion chasing the electric vehicle mandates. So yes, the electric vehicle mandates, they've lost money on it. Now you do have the Inflation Reduction Act. You do have, it's going to be very difficult for North American manufacturers to build EVs with Chinese batteries. They need to bring battery production here. Otherwise, they're going to lose out on government rebates for the buyers of the vehicles. So government rebates will dry up for them and the buyers. So they've got to bring battery production home. And of course, there's always the issue when you're buying all these batteries with China. What happens if you end up in a verbal argument, a very serious verbal argument, or a physical altercation with between two militaries? Well, there goes your batteries. So these aren't independent companies that are going to sell to the highest bidder. They're Chinese-owned companies. The government owns the companies. The government tells them what to do when they need to tell them what to do. So that's a very serious issue. So Biden's goal was that by 2032, 60% of vehicles sold are EVs. 2035 worldwide in many countries is a 100% EV sold requirement. So I think a lot of people are not thrilled about being forced. I would think that it's quite normal that dealers get worried, like, hey, how's this going to affect our bottom line? Are we going to be stacking vehicles and paying crazy interest on them? So here's the big question. Will you consider an EV? Let us know in the comments section, please. While you're in the comments section, hit a thumbs up, share this content with as many people as possible. And do please hit the bell notification on, because we are a small family business. And M. Peugeot, we are moving on towards a rant, but please comment. I know that things are going to get better. I've talked a little bit about future battery production. We're going to have solid state batteries. We also have graphene manufacturing, trying to use technology from Queensland University with a graphene battery, aluminum graphene battery. And in initial small battery tests, they were charging about 10 times faster, or more, 60 times faster. Instead of charging a cell phone at an hour, the battery charge was taking 1 minute. So up to 60 times faster charging for the appropriate size, about 3 times more autonomy, you could say, than your traditional lithium ion battery. So there is a lot of excitement with that. Ford and Volkswagen are, through QuantumScape, are looking at, they've funded and bought into QuantumScape. So they're going to be getting solid state batteries, probably not next year, probably not the year after, but we're talking about maybe 3 to 8 years down the road. Solid state batteries are going to be pretty darn incredible. Barely lose any of their functions after the equivalent of 300,000 miles. So these will be batteries that can that will be very likely much more reliable, and no matter what, won't degrade drastically with time. So if the USA can build up their charging network, things are right there going to be a lot better. And remember, Ford's helping with this. Ford is forcing dealers that want to sell electric vehicles to have chargers available 24/7, fast chargers available 24/7. That's really going to help, because there's a Ford dealer in like every city, even small towns. So we've got Volkswagen and Ford bringing us new battery technologies down the road, which will probably quite negatively impact the resale value of lithium ion, but will bring us amazing EVs. More reason to slow down this whole forced fast EV push with these crazy high fines, forcing the manufacturers to produce as many models as fast as possible with electric, to avoid fines on their gasoline-powered, petrol-powered vehicles. And quite frankly, when they're losing billions in EVs, or paying billions in fines to the government because they're not having a high enough fleet per average, mile per gallon average, what do you think's going down? Well, Mary Barra, Jim Farley, Mercedes, everyone has to say, oh, we're losing money. So what happens? They increase the price of the vehicles they are selling. So this is causing gasoline-powered vehicles to increase in price. A company, at the end of the day, needs to balance the books. This guy's not balancing the books. Trudeau's not balancing the books either. It's pretty frustrating that people that have no concept of balancing the books, they probably couldn't even balance their own books at home for just their family, but somehow they're really not balancing the books for the country, but somehow they're telling automakers that they need to, you could say, balance their books. They're saying, we don't care if you lose money with your EVs. You're going to produce EVs now, or you're going to pay us billions of dollars. And when Ford, GM, Toyota, Mercedes, Audi, BMW, Jeep, Ram, Chrysler, Chevrolet, GM, it doesn't matter who you are. At the end of the day, if you have a loss at your company, either because of you're losing money on your EVs you are selling, or you're paying billions of dollars to this guy, or for carbon credits from Tesla, what are you going to do? You're going to increase the price of your petrol-powered vehicles so that the books balance and you don't go bankrupt. Companies can't print money the way countries print money. And countries should be illegal for them to print money anyways, because it causes inflation. And as a result, it's just another form of tax. The money that governments spend, it's our money. They're spending money that we will have to pay back. And we see the immediate effects in inflation with groceries that are costing 2-3 times as much. So if you want more proof that things are going to get better, though, to be positive, Ford's partnership with VW is huge. And so is the $50 billion that Ford will be putting into EVs come 2026. Tesla has dropped prices as a response to the EV customer base. So that's all really positive news to show us that EVs are going in the right direction. We just can't make it all right now. You can't have the EPA bullying us. And by us, yes, it is us, because like so many people have commented on this show before, I can't afford an EV. Heck, a new petrol-powered vehicle. So many people can't afford a new gas-powered vehicle because the prices have gone up. And this is in relation to all these EPA laws, these fines. So for the meantime, I hope we see more models like the Toyota Prius Prime, the RAV4 Prime, the Ford Escape plug-in, the Lincoln Corsair plug-in, because these are fantastic vehicles. They get really good miles per gallon. You can drive them long distances without you don't have to charge them. On your daily basis, you charge them every night, so you can go to work and back, 100% electric. But when you need to do long distances for a good part of your trip, you'll get fantastic fuel mileage. And when that plug-in battery is empty, you don't need to go plug it and charge it in, because it'll just become a regular standard hybrid, saving you 20 to 30% on your fuel bill. Once the plug-in battery is empty, it's still a good hybrid with good miles per gallon fuel consumption rating. But manufacturers don't want to be pushed out of the hybrid game because it's a smart choice. I think it's the best choice available. Jeep Wrangler 4xe is also a good one. Let's hope the Bronco goes to plug-in. So with these plug-ins, you roughly save about 46% in fuel and emissions. Plug-ins, how that technology works is you have a bigger battery, much smaller than an EV battery, but much bigger than a hybrid battery. For the RAV4, it's an 18 kilowatt battery compared to my Lightning with 133 kilowatts, or the EV Hummer, which has like 200 and some odd kilowatts. Well, traditional hybrid, 1 to 3 kilowatts, 20 to 30% better fuel economy. But plugins, you can actually use them as an all-electric vehicle. But when you've got that long distance, you're not hunting down a charger that may or may not function when you actually get there. And you get to cut your fuel bill easily in half. So hybrids are the way to go if they're plug-in. Let's not have laws make plugins not exist, because that would be a total, complete shame. Something else with EVs is it's going to be tough to make them really exciting, because they kind of look similar. They often use very similar electric engines. There's not, huge differences. It's not like petrol-powered vehicles where there's huge differences in design, power. So let's see. Companies need time to figure out how to do this right, how to make it attractive for buyers, how to make it profitable, So they're not losing billions, like Ford losing probably roughly $4 billion for the 2023 year. $4 billion on their electric side. Now the petrol side will save the electric side of the company. Coincidentally, prices have gone up at Ford on their popular petrol models. Same thing for GM, Ram, Dodge. Every manufacturer has had to increase the prices of their gas vehicles because they're not just making 100% all vehicles that they produce electric. So that's what's going on right there. Sometimes, usually, more government intervention isn't the solution to problems. So companies need time to get this right. Now, Elon Musk did. So companies that are not fuel efficient are in deep water. So that's part of the deep water coverage. Toyota in the live, they're in deep water. Cummins in deep water. And Ram is in deep water also because they're selling less trucks. They're one of the few models that sold less vehicles in 23 than in 22, despite having much better inventory. And that's because the Ram customer base, part of the reason they originally bought was because the price was a lot less. And now their prices aren't that far off. They're very similar to GM and Ford. And you do have your diehard Ram fans. They'll always buy a Ram no matter what. But you also had a good portion of Ram fans that said, I'm buying a Ram because it's significantly less expensive. And I've heard over the years people say, well, you know what? I want the all aluminum paneling on an F-150, but the Ram's so much less that I'm going to consider it. But when the price is similar, we've got problems. So for next week, please join us in our live next week. We're about to get into a rant. So if your skin isn't thick, I won't be offended if you leave now. Don't step into one of my rants. Choose to step into one of my rants, then be mad at me. I am warning you. This is coming with a warning label. You may be offended with what is coming up. But next week, please do come back to the show next week. We're going to be talking about 2023 auto sales. We'll get into depth with Ford and VW. Amazing news, what this means for the future. Let us know in the comments whether you think you should buy an EV now or wait, or maybe an EV will never interest you. Please let us know in the comments. M. Peugeot, thank you so much for the big donation for the rant. So that's why the rant is getting done. I told Marie, I said, maybe I'll get the show done in an hour and I'll be able to watch a TV show with you. But now I've got money on the table. I got to do this rant. But please come back next week because we've got those 2 topics that are going to be pretty darn interesting. And of course, we'll have a whole slew of new topics. So to those that don't want to be here for the rant, I say good night. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the bell notification so at least you have the option to watch. If you don't like the title and you're like, oh, Johnny's going to offend me on this one, you don't have to watch it. Thank you so much for those that are going to stick through because we're in rant territory now. And in rant